standing for your chair, Councillor George Jabor.
Good morning, colleagues. Please be seated. Are we live streaming? Can you all hear me clearly? Can you hear me clearly? Is it better now? Excellent. Perfect. Before we start the formal business of today's council meeting, I would like to ask the Right Reverend Anna Eltringham, the Bishop of Ripon, to lead us in prayers.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's very good to be here with you all. It's my first time leading prayers at this council meeting, so not a maiden speech, but maiden prayers, as they say. I'm the Bishop of Ripon, but the area I'm responsible for is vast. It's part of what the Archbishop of York calls the mighty Diocese of Leeds, and the Ripon area is basically the Yorkshire Dales and various other bits and pieces around the edge. So I go over as far as Bentham. I cover various urban centres along the southern side, so Skipton and Harrogate and Knaresborough and Wetherby, and then Richmond and the lower part of Barnard Castle at the top. And it's a joy, as it is, I'm sure, for you to serve across this region. We have 230 churches, many of them small village churches, and about half the number of church schools in that area. As this was my first time leading prayers, I was helpfully sent the videos of previous meetings. I only watched the first few minutes of each to see how the prayers ran. Bishop Barry was the first one that I looked at, and what he said at the start was thank you to you all, and I would like to echo that thank you, but also say a specific thank you to you for your support of the church and your involvement and your presence in various civic services, and also your support of licensings and installations of new clergy in churches. I'm very grateful to your chair, who has attended many of the licenses that I have done in these recent months, and also to local councillors when the church is in your particular division. And it is so important. That is such an important thing for you to be in attendance at, to welcome a new priest and for people to get off to a good start of working alongside and working together. And somehow I think that shows the fluidity between the church, the parish, the councillor or the member's work and their constituency. And that was the other thing that struck me looking at previous videos of these meetings, not only looking at how many of you were looking at your laptop during the prayers, but also how much like a church actually this council chamber is. Your chair could almost be in the cathedral, the bishop's chair in the cathedral. Oh, okay, put you back in your place. But we also know, don't we, historically, that the work and the debate and the decisions of local community and politicians going right back to Roman times often took place in the basilica or in the forum, which was next to the basilica. And in this country, community gatherings used to happen more so in churches until the village hall movement came along post-World War I. And parish council and parish church councils were once upon a time one in the same. Looking at it from the other side of things, my role takes me into taking services, church services, in all sorts of places. I was in Deerbolt Prison yesterday. I was in a small village school the day before, care homes, auction marts, the one in Leyburn, that too can actually look amazingly like a church at their carol service. And ecclesia, the Greek, means called together in a gathering, just like you are today. So it is my pleasure to pray for you and your work. You and I and so many others in various professions are called to serve the people of North Yorkshire. And we all know that it can be costly and tough and so often taken for granted and a thankless task. And as we approach Lent, that is worth remembering. The giving and the cost of what we do goes with the territory. And all that any of us can do is offer ourselves to the service of God, if that's how we are inclined, and the service of one another in love. It's Valentine's Day tomorrow. And many of you will know the story of that miracle of Jesus when he fed 5,000 people. In that story, while the disciples are running around wondering how to feed all these people and thinking that Jesus is crazy to even suggest it, it's a small boy who steps forward just as he is with all that he has, his packed lunch, 5 loaves, 2 fish, and offers it to feed needy people. So may we all continue to work together, simply offering the people we are, the people we've been made to be, everything we are, with our heart and with our love for all people, but in this context, the good people of North Yorkshire. And so now let me pray for you and your meeting. Faithful and loving God, here we are, called together, gathered to be people of love and care and compassion. And for a moment now, as this meeting begins, we rest in you and the source of love and care and compassion. We offer to you the meeting ahead and the agenda today, predominantly concerned with finances and the budget. We hold this huge responsibility before you. And we remember the panic of the disciples when it felt there was not enough to meet the need. And instead, we offer our thanksgiving for the many resources you bestow upon us and the finances with which you have blessed our work. Help us to be wise and good stewards of all that has been given. Help us to listen and speak well, and to remember in whose image we are all made, and to see your likeness in one another and all whom we serve. So may you give us the grace we need, and continue to bless each of us here in your service and the work of this council across the region. In the name of the one who chose to serve, not to be served, Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Blessings. Thank you.
Well, many thanks indeed, Bishop Anna, for joining us this morning and for what you said. It's been very interesting and it's truly appreciated. Thank you. I would like to welcome the honorary aldermen, members of the public and the press, representatives from the Yorkshire Society. I will say more on that shortly, and also those watching online. Welcome all to today's meetings of North Yorkshire Council on Friday, the 13th of February. In addition to the budget meeting we have this morning, there is an extraordinary meeting in the afternoon to deal with two urgent issues. The extraordinary meeting is scheduled for 2 p.m. and will start as soon as the budget is decided. However, if it gets late and the budget has not been agreed, we will do the extraordinary meeting and return to complete the work on the budget on the reserve day, which is scheduled for 23rd of February. Please note that today's meetings are live broadcast and will be available to view on the Council YouTube site and website. Please ensure that you use your microphones when speaking. I ask members to be aware that what is on your screen, what is on the screen of your laptop or phone may inadvertently be picked up by the cameras. Item 1 is apologies for absence. I received apologies from the following councillors: Councillor John Mann, Councillor John Katanak, Councillor Paul Haslam, Councillor John McCartney, Councillor Philip Barrett, Councillor Stephanie Duckett. Do the group secretaries wish to add any others?
Can I add apologies from David Nolan, please, and Rich Moore?
The Chair, Councillor Andrew Murday sends his apologies.
Any other apologies? No. Okay. Item 2 is declarations of interests. Having sought advice and for the sake of transparency, I wish to declare that I am a non-executive director of the Border to Coast Pensions Partnerships. Having said that, the agenda item has no direct impact on my interests. One of the budget amendments today is about citizens' advice. A number of members serve with this organization. Therefore, for transparency, I'm going to hand over to Barry Khan to explain the position on this and also on other organizations that may benefit from decisions made upon the budget today.
Thank you, Chair. So clearly it's up to members to determine which interests they need to declare. There has been a notice given that there is an amendment to do with the Citizen Advice Law Centre. We have a number of trustees and other people that are on that law centre. The Standards Committee considered this matter and decided that they would grant a dispensation because they didn't want members to feel that they couldn't vote on the most important decision, which is the budget. So members will need to still declare their interests now with regards to their involvement in citizens' advice. And also the Standards Committee did consider granting other dispensations where the budget was going to have a direct impact on one organisation where those councillors are not paid to work in that organisation. So it was just to mention that. So, thank you, Chair.
Based on this, can I ask members who wish to formally make any declarations of interest relating to the agenda? Councillor David Chance.
Thank you, Chairman. I am a trustee of North Yorkshire Citizens Advice and Law Centre, and I rely on the dispensation granted to me to vote today.
Councillor Hull.
Yes, just to say my wife is an employee of North Yorkshire Council. She has an operational role in Children's Social Services.
Okay. Councillor Les.
Chairman, thank you. I'm a trustee of the North Yorkshire Citizen Advice as well.
Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. Can I declare an interest in the budget papers, specifically the Treasury Management and Capital Strategy? My employer is listed in those papers, but I'm also relying on a dispensation granted by the Standards Committee to stay in the meeting and vote.
Councillor Goodrick.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I need to declare that I'm a trustee of North Yorkshire Citizens Advice and Law Centre. Thank you.
Councillor Jack Proud.
Just to declare that won't be voting on item 4 of the agenda as it covers the housing revenue and I'm a council tenant. Thank you.
Councillor May Davis.
Yes, Chair, I'm also a trustee of North Yorkshire Citizens Advice and Law Centre.
Perfect. Councillor Sam Cross.
Thank you, Chair. Really, I think I better say this because I'll be saying it later on. I'd just like to declare that I am a landlord and I do own properties in East Yorkshire, West Yorkshire, North Yorkshire, and as you probably are aware, that I am against the double taxation on second homes. I don't think that's news to anybody here, but I'll just declare it in any case.
Thank you, Councillor Cross. I've got Councillor Mike Jordan and Councillor John Ritchie.
Thank you, Chair. Just to, it may come up in the budget. I'm there just to say that I'm a member of Selby Internal Drainage Board, Daneham Internal Drainage Board, and also a Vice Chair of the Transpennine Trail. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. In relation to my membership of North Yorkshire Citizens Advice and Law Centre, I too will rely on the dispensation that I've been given.
Councillor Dand.
Thank you. Declare an interest in any matters relating to second terms premium, which I am firmly in favour of. And I do rely upon the dispensation given to me by the Standards Committee.
I believe everyone who wanted to make a declaration has done so. Councillor Paraskos.
Thank you, Chair. Just for clarification, am I supposed to declare an interest in drainage boards? Because somebody did. Well, technically, I don't have an interest in drainage boards, but I am on 2 drainage boards.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
Can I also declare that I am on the Kyle and Wisk Drainage Board?
Sorry, through you, just to clarify, although we're very grateful for people being on the internal drainage boards, you don't need to declare an interest. You're not paid for that.
Excellent. Item 3 is the Chair's announcements. May I remind members that decisions for this meeting will be made by recorded votes. The budget has 5 parts and there are 3 amendments. So we will likely have 8 named votes. And there is a legal requirement to ensure that members are not in arrears for their council tax when voting on the budget. Furthermore, there is an additional requirement in relation to voting about the housing revenue count budget, which Barry just mentioned, but we will mention it again before we vote on that item at that point. The time limit for speaker on motions is 3 minutes. However, as this is a budget meeting, the mover, seconder, and each spokesman and each spokesperson of a political group should be able to speak for up to 6 minutes today. On a sad note, I have been informed of the recent passing of former County Councillor and Harrogate Borough Councillor John Marshall, former Harrogate Borough Councillor Bob Nash, and former Scarborough Borough Councillor John Warburton. May I ask you to stand for a minute's silence in their memory? Thank you. Please be seated. On 1st of August last year, I attended the Yorkshire Day 2025 civic celebrations in Bradford. It was a wonderful community event. Afterwards, I discovered that the last time Yorkshire Day celebrations was hosted by a local authority in North Yorkshire was in 2019. I also believe that it has never been awarded to the council that represented the whole of our county. Therefore, I inquired about the process of hosting future Yorkshire Day celebrations. The dates for 2026, 2027, and 2028 had already been taken. So after consulting with group leaders and officers, and after meeting with the Yorkshire Society, I am delighted to publicly announce today that North Yorkshire Council's proposal for hosting Yorkshire Day 2029 civic celebrations was successful. We made it clear in our bid that our ambition for Yorkshire Day 2029 is to serve as the catalyst to develop economic and cultural ambitions. We want to celebrate Yorkshire, to shout about our fantastic businesses, our scenic landscapes, our stunning coastline, our unique heritage, and our beautiful towns and villages. We want a public celebration that's open to everyone, one that attracts visitors from across the county and from further afield, a moment for communities right across the region to come together. On this point, it is a real pleasure to introduce Colonel Stephen Paget, OBE, Deputy Chair of the Yorkshire Society, Steve Bradwell, Yorkshire Society Executive Committee Member and the current lead on Yorkshire Day, and Jill Bradwell. Welcome and thank you for joining us this morning. It's very appreciated. They are attending the morning session of this meeting and will stay with us for the lunch break like last time when the chairs of Cumberland and Westmoreland and Furness Council joined us. Item 4 is the budget. As we consider the annual council budget today, I would like to draw the attention of members to the Equality Impact Assessments, EIA, that have been produced and which are included in the papers today. Members are required to read the individual EIAs to inform their decision-making and ensure legal compliance with the public sector quality duty under the Equality Act 2010. Members will have received an email from Gary Fielding yesterday afternoon about changes to the budget report following final local government finance settlement 2026-27. In particular, I would like to highlight that the Council Tax Resolution Appendix was updated as per Gary's email, and all the information are available and have been uploaded on the Council website. The first part is North Yorkshire Council's revenue budget for 26-27, the medium-term financial strategy to 2028-29. I call on Councillor Carl Les to move the recommendations 1A and 1D to 1P and number 2 regarding the revenue budget for 26-27 and the medium-term financial strategy at pages 5 to 7 of the main agenda.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, members. First of all, as each year, can I thank Gary Fielding and the finance team, and indeed all our management, for getting us to this point today. We may not agree on our conclusions, but I hope we all agree that we are well informed. I'd also like to I'd like to recognise the work of my colleagues around this table in getting prepared, and the roles that all of us members do that we play in seminars, area committees and group meetings. We're caught today between rising demand, especially for our high cost services, and falling government support. Losing our annual rural support grant for less than sound reasons was bad enough, but that same flawed logic was carried through into the fair funding review, which was less than fair for us. Deprivation is an important consideration. Indeed, we have pockets of deprivation which the members who represent those divisions know only too well. But so is rurality, and funding one should not be at the expense of the other, and this block approach is not fair to our communities. Rural isolation is also an index of deprivation. The consequences of these cuts takes £40 million out of our core spending power. There is a little light ahead with regard to SEND, and well done to the government for grasping this nettle, but its benefit and its sustainability is unclear, and it is certainly not for this budget. Thank heavens we have the financial benefit of local government reorganisation and the single unitary. And thank heavens we have a cushion of reserves, but those reserves were prudently gathered to fund one-off capital projects for the benefit of our residents, not to prop up the revenue account. This budget round is the most severe that I can remember, although one part, setting our council tax level, is perhaps the easiest that we've ever had to do, as the government settlement is totally predicated on setting it at the maximum. We know that will be difficult for some to bear. Less than £100 for a bandy equivalent sounds affordable, but it is added to an already significant sum, taking it to over £2,000. I'm pleased that we are able to maintain our council tax reduction scheme to help the most financially vulnerable, along with other support measures. And I'm pleased that in all this gloom, we are able to fund some investments for children, increasing capacity in children's social care, so removing pressure. For adults, 5 new care and support hubs, improving support. For home seekers and the homeless, a range of housing projects and initiatives. And for all, investment into leisure services to help keep folks healthy. We've kept all our MPs from all parties informed as well, and I thank them for their part in lobbying ministers with our concerns. And I ask that they will continue to do so as we wrestle with the less fair parts of fair funding. Chairman, I move the budget recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Les. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Dadd. I now intend to work through the amendments in the order that they were received. I call upon Councillor Liz Colling to move the first amendment about Citizens Advice Seasonal Health Contract. You have 6 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. You will be aware that the intent of this motion is identical to one that the Labour Group proposed last year. At that time, we were unsuccessful, but in the intervening period, we have had ongoing discussions, and I'd like to place on record my thanks to officers and the leadership of the Council in bringing this forward again. You will note that as a result of that engagement, the amendment wording is slightly tweaked. It does not change the financial implication or the intent of the motion. Just a few words to remind you. Citizens Advice had previously run a seasonal health contract for North Yorkshire for £50,000 a year, and the Council chose not to fund this initiative in our last budget. In 2024, around 10,000 clients were helped across North Yorkshire, and approximately 70 organisations use the service. The 50,000 does not cover the full cost of running the service, but it serves as base funding through which Citizens Advice secures additional funds from sources like British Gas Energy Trust and Northern Power Grid. In total, this allowed Citizens Advice to bring in around 650,000 a year for energy funding in North Yorkshire, employing 20 individuals and running a county-wide telephone service. This supports the most vulnerable in our communities at low cost to this authority, and I suggest is an excellent investment of a modest amount of money to raise those benefits for our residents. The key data from the project is set out in the papers, so you can see that, and then I will move to my amendment as worded. We call on Council to award £50,000 per annum to Citizens Advice for the 3 years of the medium-term financial strategy, 2026-2027 to 2028-29, for activity that supports winter warmth initiatives and fuel poverty, strengthening the support for the most vulnerable members of our community. I so move, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Colling. I call upon Councillor Steve Shorrock to second the motion.
Just formally second it, Chair, but noting that CAB is probably one of the organisations that every member in this authority will have contact with, either directly when they themselves have issues, sometimes with the same council that they're a member of, to deal with, but also members of the general public. I think it will be the best 50k a year this council spent for a long time.
Thank you, Councillor Shorrock. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on this? Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. In looking at this amendment, it's quite interesting that Citizens Advice and our funding of Citizens Advice is not a statutory requirement. And it's always quite fascinating when we look at the things that we really lean upon as a council through our voluntary sector and the likes of Citizens Advice, that other councils around the country are cutting money because they feel like they just simply have to, when we're in a position where we value what these organisations do and therefore seek to protect their funding. I mean, there is other monies that goes towards them, but there's no doubt that the Warm and Well initiative and the benefits that come from that are really valued. So I'm happy to support the amendment. I recognise that officers will have to work from a contractual procurement perspective how they would actually get this money to them, but in principle I am keen to support the amendment brought forward.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. I've got Councillor Sladen, Councillor Ritchie and Councillor Gudrick.
Chair, as Liberal Democrats, we place a high value on practical frontline advice that helps residents stay afloat, and Citizens Advice remains one of the most trusted and effective organisations we work with. Across North Yorkshire, they support thousands of people every year with energy costs, debt, housing and benefits, and they often step in before problems escalate into crisis. And for some residents, Citizens Advice is the first and sometimes the only door they feel able to knock on. For me, this is about being warm, W-A-R-M, working with trusted partners, attracting external funding, reaching the most vulnerable, and maximising every pound we spend. So a modest council contribution helps underpin a much larger package of support, bringing in substantial extra resources and sustaining a genuinely county-wide service that many residents see as their safest port of call. I note the Section 151 officer has confirmed this amendment's affordable and he doesn't require to change his overall opinion. And on that basis, and because warm is exactly how we should approach both our communities and our finances, I'll be supporting this amendment and I encourage colleagues to do the same.
Thank you, Councillor Sladen. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Chair. I will be brief. Speaking in favour of this motion, this is a well-researched, evidence-based motion, which in all intents and purposes is an invest to save scheme. The fact that Citizens Advice can evidence that they will that this £50,000 will drag in £650,000 worth of funding is, for me, evidence enough that it ought to be supported. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councillor Gudrick.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll also be brief and say thank you to my colleagues for bringing the motion forward. There is no doubt that North Yorkshire Citizens Advice work really well for all our local residents, and given that we have pockets of deprivation and fuel poverty in the county, I think it's right that we support them and fund them so that they can deliver an excellent service that they've been doing for some considerable time. Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Collin, would you like to exercise your right of reply?
Just to clarify, there is core funding that goes.
Sorry, apologies. I think Councillor Phillips wanted to raise her hand. Sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. I need to go on that assertiveness course, obviously. Councillor Colling, I'm very, very happy that you've amended this today, because I believe it gives us that little bit of wiggle room, as you say. 10,000 people supported across our county. There's no, like you say, there's nobody here that hasn't had some involvement, and I'm so happy to see that so many of the members in this room are taking an active part in supporting that organisation. North Yorkshire has always taken the view that we should support our partners, and CAB are a very important part of that partnership, and I'm all about that kind of working. And value for money is really important now. Central government has taken a slightly different view about how we should support services. They've now got the new fund, which is not household support, but crisis and resilience. So that will hopefully tie in really well with this extra money that we're able to offer if the members are so minded to support it. There's it's amazing how much can be done with so little. We have a unit in the council which is the income maximisation unit, and they do a fantastic job making sure that people who may be lost out on a winter fuel payment but may be eligible for something else, and I can give you a figure that as £250,000 is now in people's pockets across North Yorkshire because of that, the work of a very small unit within North Yorkshire. So very happy to support this, Liz, and I hope that CAB and all of our members are able to make really good use of the money if it's agreed.
Thank you, Councillor Phillips. Councillor Collin.
I will now be even briefer. Following Councillor Phillips, I'd like to thank you all for your support across the chamber. Just to clarify, Citizens Advice does get core funding from this council, and everybody is really appreciative of that. And we know that they do tremendous work, and especially around trading standards and general advice. This is additional money for the specific purpose of fuel poverty, and it is really great example of working in partnership and the synergy that we can develop together. Thank you all very much for your support.
Thank you, Councillor Coyne. Now, I'm sensing that there is a broad consensus in favour of this motion. So as a result, there might be a possibility not to do a named vote. Can I just have an indication if there is anyone who is against this this amendment? Okay, so if that is the case, we are going to now officially move to the vote, but it doesn't have to be a named vote. I just need people to raise their hands. So, so anyone in favour of this amendment, please show. Okay, that's unanimous. So the, of course, those against, and any abstentions? Excellent. So, so the amendment had been carried, and this, of course, means that the budget has been amended. The budget proposal has been amended accordingly, and we now move to the next amendment. I call upon Councillor Matt Walker to move the second amendment about double devolution. You have 6 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to move the Liberal Democrat budget amendment, which supports our shared ambition to become the most local, large, unitary council in England. If we are truly wanting decisions made closer to our communities, then we must empower the town and parish councils who stand ready to deliver. Across North Yorkshire, local councils want to take on more responsibility, but the reality is that many are struggling with gaps in capacity, expertise and support. Our amendment proposes a practical response, a £100,000 double devolution support fund for both 2026-27 and 27-28, co-designed with town and parish councils themselves. As a town councillor myself for Knaresborough, I've seen firsthand just how hard the process is. There are still a few hurdles to jump, but I believe firmly that it will be worthwhile to get Knaresborough Market back in charge of Knaresborough Town Council for better local services, stronger accountability and a more responsive council at every level. This achievement shows what is possible when local councils have the capacity and support to produce strong business cases and engagement with North Yorkshire Council. But let's be honest, Knaresborough so far is the only one of the parish and town councils that have come forward to be successful. Increasingly, councils see double devolution as dumping costs on them, costs which will inevitably drive up precepts and leave residents footing the bill or risk services failing altogether. This amendment directly addresses this problem. By providing targeted support, this fund helps to ensure that more towns and villages can follow in Knaresborough's models, not just in ambition, but in successfully delivering services. With structured support, we can prevent increased precepts, prevent cost shunting, and prevent communities from feeling forced into impossible choices. The Section 151 officer confirms that this amendment result is only a modest addition to the use of reserves, £100,000 per year for 2 years, and does not alter the overall budget judgment. This amendment is sensible, affordable and essential. It empowers local councils, removes barriers and supports success stories like Knaresborough to be repeated across North Yorkshire. I urge you all to support this budget amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. I call upon Councillor Chris Aldred to second the motion.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to second the motion, but reserve my right to speak later.
Thank you. Anyone who wishes to speak on this? Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Chairman. Double Devo is a very important part of why we became a unitary. We need to empower our lower tier of local government in our towns and parishes. We have 700 or so of them, the most in any county in England, Scotland, Wales. It is a massive number, and each have a different appetite for taking part in Double Devo. Some, like Knaresborough, they haven't taken back the market. The market's always, it's been there, and it's there. I think if you go back to 1300, as one of my colleagues has quoted, there might be a charter on it somewhere. But we must bear in mind that the appetite is different with each organisation. You have the ability to support your parish and town councils to build capacity already. If you look in the little drop-down menu on locality budget, it says capacity building and IT and similar. And I know a few of you have done so in order to let parish councils progress. So I'm not sure that spending £100,000 a year, which if we had a couple of officers helping, the money would be gone like that. You might not see an awful lot happening. But we already have a very good parish liaison team. And if you have any questions about devolution, come and speak to somebody. When they're a very approachable team, they've worked very experienced now, because we've had a few bumps along the road when it's come to devolution. But as members, we are in a unique position to support our town and parish councils when they are offered a chance to try out double devo. And it's unfortunate that a couple of these have been scuppered because of adverse publicity. And the parish sector is fragile enough without having their local member decide that it's more important to have a Facebook post than actually move forward. Please support your town and parish councils effectively by doing so. I think that's about it, but we are the main part of this. You all have parishes and town councils. Please prod them along and test the waters, and we will come forward with some more projects very shortly, and hopefully we'll be able to make Devo happen all over the place. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Phillips. Councillor Shorewright and then Councillor Napton.
Thanks, Chair. We will be supporting this motion. There needs to be more action on double devolution. I am a member of Selby Town Council along with Jack and Melanie, and we have been working tirelessly with the officers of North Yorkshire on double devolution over several meetings to try and get information from this authority. We find it quite embarrassing as council members and parish town council members that this authority doesn't know how much it costs to run a building that they would like us to take over. They don't know how much it costs to run such a building. Part of it, they don't even know the buildings that they own or the land that they own. We were told recently we could not sell a football field. This authority told the town council we cannot sell this football field because it is an asset of community value. Really good. We don't own it. You do. So there's a real problem with that, and we think there is a lot of pressure from town and parish councils. Some do have the capacity. Selby Town Council's budget is 800 grand. We employ a number of staff, professional officers. We bring in consultants as and when required. We will be more than willing to meet tomorrow to resolve the problems with double devolution. A lot of the other parish councils, and 729, if they all got a bit of this pie, it'd be 137 quid a piece, which ain't going to go very far. But I do think there needs to be some more support, and whether that's internally or externally, that support needs to be done, because it will benefit both the local communities and this authority to realistically get rid of stuff that you no longer want. So we will be supporting, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Napton.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I won't be supporting this amendment. I think £100,000 will simply disappear. And as Steve mentioned, if you took that to every parish, it'd be 137 quid, which is not really going to help, but obviously it would go to a lesser number than that. We're talking about capacity, and Heather talked about capacity. Yeah, we can do that through the locality budget, but equally, the parishes are in a unique position that they can precept. So if they want to take on a resource that is run by this council, they can budget for it. That's what they can do. We are unfortunately in a position where our hands are tied financially, but they aren't. They can precept, they can take a public work loan out. There's lots of options open to the parishes. And when we're talking about blockage, what Steve highlighted, then we can sort that internally. There's enough skills in this chamber alone. We've got a lot of parish councillors. We've got a lot of councillors who have sat alongside parish councils for many years. We've got parish clerks in this room. So between us and the parish liaison team, if there are blockages to getting this information, as Steve highlighted, then internally we can do that. I don't see how this money is going to help. I think it's just a matter of us getting on with it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Peter Lacey and Councillor Andrew Williams.
Thank you. Time moves quite quickly in this sometimes, and I just want to acknowledge that Knaresborough is not the only deal in principle, as I understand it. Earlier this week with Ripon also having the opportunity to sign some agreement in principle. So acknowledge that, and I think as an example, I think it applies to Knaresborough as well. The financial side often comes after the hard slog. Is virtually won, and then there are sweeteners. So I want to acknowledge also that North Yorkshire Council has stepped in to provide financial support, but it is at the end of a hard slog. It would be disappointing if this opportunity to redress some of the bad news stories, if you like, that have trickled out. This is an opportunity to restore trust in what we believe is central to our double devolution journey. I'm afraid any reference or suggestion that locality budgets now half what they used to be, being appropriate to support parish and town councils on this front. I know it's there in the tick box, it can be used, I'm not denying that, but I'm not sure what our use of locality budgets to encourage devolution is at all the right way to go. So I'm really wanting to support and encourage people to see this as an opportunity to restore trust in a central plank of becoming that most local large unitary. I urge you to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Andrew Williams and then Councillor Dadd.
Firstly, in reference to the proposed amendment, I would advise that uniquely there is also one city council in North Yorkshire, but I notice not for the first time the Liberal Democrats choose to ignore Ripon. Secondly, having been a member of that council for 27 years, I can't see the benefit in the slightest of the amendment that's before us this morning. All it's going to do is spend £100,000 on bureaucracy rather than actual frontline service delivery, either by this council or by parishes. The idea that £100,000 is going to be allotted to a scheme which we're then going to ask officers to consult with 700 parish councils about how that scheme should be designed and implemented. We'll spend £100,000 designing the scheme, let alone actually progressing anything. I have to say, and I place on record my sincere thanks on behalf of Ripon City Council to the officers of this council who've worked tirelessly with the City Council to ensure the delivery of the most ambitious of the double devolution bids that were submitted in the first round of applications. Yeah, and yes, it does take time, but it's taking time to get it right and to make sure that all the details are right so that when double devolution does take place, it's a success rather than a failure. And I'm sorry, but if a parish council lacks the initial capacity to work out whether it could actually take a service on or not, or lacks the capacity to ask our officers some serious questions to get some answers to, then quite frankly, it doesn't have the capacity to take the service on in the first place.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Dadd and Councillor Swanwick as the last speaker on this debate.
Thank you, Chairman. I think we're all agreed that we all want to arrive at a position where double devolution is made simpler, easier and more efficient to achieve. I don't think there's any disagreement within the chamber. I think I've got to concur with Councillor Williams and especially Councillor Napton. How we achieve that by ring fencing or earmarking £100,000 is probably not achievable. I think we've also got to recognise, certainly as far as the leadership's concerned, in that we haven't been as good as we wanted to be in delivering double devolution. We've had some success stories, but we've got to do better. But the answer isn't just £100,000. It's easy, isn't it, to get rid of the problem, so you think, by throwing 100 grand at it. I don't think it will achieve what we want it to achieve. I think the achievement will come from better organisation and delivery internally and working with our existing resources with those parish and town and city councils that are fit enough to take on that double devolution.
Thank you. And finally, Councillor Swanwick.
Thank you, Chair. I'm speaking in favour of the amendment. It's a positive amendment. It might be criticised for not going far enough in terms of delivering what it sets out to do, but nonetheless, it's a step in the right direction. When we were discussing the whole process of local government reorganisation going back to 2022, I had difficulties convincing the residents in Whitby that it was to their advantage. They said to me, we've spent years being dominated by Scarborough Borough Council. All we're going to do is swap Northallerton for Scarborough. And I said, no. Part of the package is going to be double devolution. And that double devolution means that we could potentially take on assets and services that are currently organised by somebody else and bring them down to a local level so that people can have some say over the services that they're paying for. I have to say that that hasn't happened, has it? And I came to this council meeting probably in one of my first speeches to this chamber was to Councillor White, who was then in the position of the politician overseeing double devolution. And I made an argument to him and said, there must be some capacity funding for town and parish councils in order to be able to come up with proposals that are viable to put to North Yorkshire Council. Because what had happened was that I went to the town clerk in Whitby and said, now we've got this opportunity. Now we've got the opportunity to look at all the assets and services that are delivered in Whitby and say, well, what can we do better at a local level? And he said to me, well, I think you've got to be fairly sort of careful about what you offer here, Neil, because we could end up taking on liabilities which we wouldn't be able to cope with at the end. And so I said, no, we've got to be ambitious. We've got to look at how we can take this thing forward. That was back in 2023. And I have to say that the record, and that seems to have been admitted by Councillor Dadd, is that the progress on double devolution hasn't been as good as it had been hoped for. So the question is, how do we give it a little boost? And I think that this 100,000 is a fairly modest attempt to try and get the ball rolling in areas where there isn't the capacity. In my own area, I think we've got 2.5 staff members who are having to run council meetings, deal with correspondence, deal with FOIs, etc. All quite demanding and takes up all their time. How can they then sit down and start analysing the services that are delivered locally and make a case for adding that local knowledge to the equation?
Thank you, Councillor Swanwick. Before I go to Councillor Aldred, Councillor Followay raised his hand.
Just a question. If this goes through, how will it affect councils, local councils like town councils who are already doing double devolution? They're going to be kind of missing out. I take, for example, that Skipton Town Council have for a long time run the market in Skipton, and it's not an easy thing to run because the high street of Skipton is in multiple ownerships. So, but they've managed to do it. They managed to do it without much help apart from raising their own precept. I'm just wondering about the kind of fairness of it. They're going to be missing out. They're going to have to possibly find something else to tap into this. So there are councils out there that are already kind of doing this. They've done it actually without much help from North Yorkshire, but they've done it.
Thank you. Councillor Aldred, sorry, Councillor Brodigan has just raised her hand. Would you like to speak? Councillor Brodigan.
Thank you, Chair. Ripon City Council is a parish council. I'd just like to put that right. We call ourselves City Council because we're a city, but it's actually a parish council. Another correction I'd like to make is that officers from North Yorkshire have actually been speaking, not with Ripon City Council up until this week, they've actually been speaking with Councillor Williams. The first that we've actually heard about most of the negotiations have been this week. And thirdly, I'd like to say is North Yorkshire Council thank you, have already pledged some funding to help Ripon City Council to actually get its double devolution through. So the money is already there. It's already been promised for Ripon. So why not for other councils?
Thank you, Councillor Brodigan. Councillor Aldred. Oops, sorry. Councillor Shorart, you've already.
Just a point of order. If they're having some money, I'm sure Selby wants some money as well. How much, and was it delivered in brown envelopes or via an ice cream machine?
Thank you. Councillor Aldred, and maybe you might wish to also address some of the points that have been raised here, but I will still give Councillor Walker the right to reply if you wish to exercise it at the very end. Councillor Aldred.
You're not sitting in the right seat, Steve. You need to be on a certain other group to do that. And I do acknowledge completely Councillor Soloway's grievance, not experience at Skipton Town Council as somebody who was employed by that council, and one of my duties was running Skipton Market. It's not the easiest market in the world to run. Knaresborough's got a lot better system coming up, I think. I think the crux of this is what Gareth actually said a few moments ago, that we've been here nearly 4 years now. Okay, the first year we were still with the districts as well as the old county council, but we had that ambition 4 years ago to devolve services locally to the lowest tier or the first tier of local government, which of course is the town and parish councils. And where are we? Nearly 4 years later. Gareth's admitted it. It's not as far in advance as we'd like to be. And I think what this amendment does gives us the capacity to go that little bit further. I think Neil and Steve have both spoken very eloquently about the aspirations of individual town councils who could go so much further if they were just given a little bit more encouragement. And we're in Yorkshire. There's Yorkshire Society and with us. There's nothing like brass, is there, to encourage people to move that bit further. And I think we can do that. Heather, we've got the offices already. You've alluded to them. That's not a problem. The parish offices are there and they do work wonderfully well. And locality budgets, we've gone down from 10,000 per councillor to 5,000. It's not going to happen, is it? There's other kind of provisions that we as councillors are seeing and need to meet other than our town councils there. So I do think we should look at Gary's comments on the last two lines on this amendment, which is that this single amendment does not constitute a significant departure from the overall budget. It's not going to cost any more. Ripon aren't going to be putting in for any of this 100,000, so we've already saved about 80,000 there. So I do encourage members to vote for this. I think it would make an awful amount of difference throughout the county. As somebody who has just been elected to a town council this particular council year, I do know how much effort they put into the work. All town and parish councils are volunteers, and I do think this would kickstart this double devolution process, and all across the county we could see our town and parishes benefits. So I would urge you to vote for it.
Thank you, Councillor Aldred. Councillor Walker, is there anything you would like to add on this?
So I suppose, firstly, I'd like to apologise if I've offended any Ripon City Councils by their omission of their devolution bid. So that's an oversight and I'm prepared to admit and apologise for that. And secondly, I'd like to just thank Steve Shorewright and the Labour group for their comments and support. I think it's really important. This is what we were sold this big council on. It was one of the biggest things, devolution. Knaresborough is still not over the line. The devil is in the detail, as I'm sure Ripon City Council will soon find out if they haven't already. And I think it's a real shame if we're not going to support this. If we all get to the end of our terms and there are no devolution deals that have actually been done. So this is a real opportunity not to be missed. And I do urge you to support this amendment. This is what this big council was set up to do, to have devolution deals. And my real concern is that without this, at the end of our terms, we have no devolution deals. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Les, as the mover of the original part of this budget, is there anything you would like to add to the debate? Okay, therefore we will now move to the vote. And as I mentioned earlier, this one is going to be a named vote. So I'm going to hand over to Barry Khan.
Thank you, Chair. So we're going to go for a name vote. If you can say if you're for, against or abstaining on the amendment for double devolution for £100,000 a year for the next 2 years and then being reviewed in year 3. So Councillor Aldred.
For.
Councillor Andrews.
For.
Councillor Arthur.
For.
Councillor Baker.
Against.
Councillor Basterman. Councillor Broadbank.
For.
Councillor Broadbent.
For.
Councillor Brodigan.
For.
Councillor Andy Brown.
Abstain.
Councillor Nick Brown. Councillor Burr. Councillor Chance.
Against.
Councillor Colling.
For.
Councillor Crane. Councillor Cross. Councillor Cunliffe Lister.
For.
Councillor Dadd. Councillor Davis. Councillor Dickinson.
Against.
Councillor Donoghue Moncrief.
For.
Councillor Duncan. Councillor Kevin Foster.
For.
Councillor Richard Foster. Councillor Gibbs. Councillor Goodrick.
Against.
Councillor Goslow.
For.
Councillor Griffiths.
For.
Councillor Grogan. Councillor Harrison. Councillor Heseltine. Councillor Hugill. Councillor Hull. Councillor Ireton. Councillor Jabor.
Against.
Councillor Jeffels.
Against.
Councillor Jefferson.
Against.
Councillor Jones. Councillor Jordan.
For.
Councillor Napton. Councillor Lacey. Councillor Lee. Absent. Councillor Les. Councillor Lunn.
Against.
Councillor Mason. Councillor Morehouse. Councillor Myers. Councillor Packham. Councillor Paraskos. Councillor Parsons. Councillor Peacock.
Against.
Councillor Pearson. Councillor Phillips. Councillor Poskett. Councillor Proud. Councillor Ritchie. Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Schofield. Councillor Sedgwick. Councillor Seston. Councillor Sharma. Councillor Shaw-Wright. Councillor Sladden. Councillor Slater. Councillor Soloway.
Against.
Councillor Staveley. Councillor Swanwick.
For.
Councillor Swires.
Against.
Councillor Taylor. Councillor Thompson. Councillor Timothy.
For.
Councillor Trumper. Councillor Walker. Councillor Warnecan. Councillor Watson. Councillor Webster. Councillor Wheel. Councillor White. Councillor Annabel Wilkinson. Councillor Peter Wilkinson. Councillor Williams. Councillor Windass. Thank you.
31 for, 48 against, and 1 abstention. So therefore, the vote is not carried. We now go to the next amendment. I call upon Councillor Peter Lacey to move the third amendment about Prevention Plus. You have 6 minutes.
Thank you very much. In my long years of consultancy work in health and care, I've recognised the importance of community and voluntary sector in improving health and well-being in local communities. In the last 10 or 15, as my time has been devoted far more to community development, that belief has been strengthened. I want to tell you a story in terms of proposing this. Names have been changed, nothing personal in this, but George is 56 and has COPD. He lost his job recently and struggles with keeping up to date with bills in a privately rented flat that is difficult to heat and where he lives alone. At a routine visit to his GP, it is noticed that he is losing weight and becoming frail before his time. Whilst not at the point of needing social care, the GP is worried that it won't be long before that is the case. Fortunately for George, there is a new service available in his area called Prevention Plus. The GP refers him to this service where a qualified professional accepts him onto their caseload and starts to work with him to restore his confidence, signposts him to benefits advice, reviews his dietary needs and suggests activities and groups within the community from which he might benefit. He makes good progress, but the caseworker has other people to work with, and so, job done, case closed. Now comes the real challenge. Whilst the input of the Prevention Plus service has averted a potential referral for full social care assessment of need, keeping it that way now depends on George not slipping back into old ways. And on this point, the evidence is clear. George's ongoing well-being will depend on a strong community and voluntary sector that will link him into new connections and opportunities. But we know, all of us know, how that is a difficult and challenging situation for community and voluntary groups who can't take on the work, the additional work. We can't take their capacity for granted. Putting additional pressure on that sector that struggles already to maintain capacity and capability will not be wise. There is a Prevention Plus proposal coming before exec next week. It is to be welcomed, but it's necessary, but not in our view sufficient, for a comprehensive prevention strategy seeking to reduce demand pressures on the local authority in the latter part of the MTSF. We are therefore proposing that an additional resource is made available, accessed by area committees, working alongside their community and voluntary sector in areas where the Prevention Plus pilots, of which we believe there will be 10, are agreed. And so whilst the Prevention Plus model will ensure that fewer people will need social care support over the period of the MTSF, an important part of the demand management and addressing of those pressures on our council budget. Our proposal, though, will further strengthen the vital role that the community and voluntary sector plays in keeping people healthy and well for longer. By involving area committees in the process, local knowledge will be harnessed, and by providing central administration of the scheme, there will be a close alignment with the strategic direction set out in the Prevention Plus proposals. We therefore urge you to support this budget amendment as a means to sustain, beyond the MTSF, but certainly within as well, the real benefits that can be generated by the Prevention Plus model. I therefore encourage you to support this budget amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lacey. Councillor Monica Slater, would you like to second the motion?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
I think we can all see, and we've all seen examples in our areas of where community activity is the bedrock of keeping that community safe and healthy. And this is really just
a way of trying to strengthen what's already out there. There's already a lot of good work that happens. But I think it's really important that we make sure that opportunities for people are close to them. The closer and more local opportunities are, the more likely they are to attend. The more convenient it is, the less expensive it is. And ultimately, what we're always aiming for is, reducing. It's a longer term mission, really, because it's the work that we do now prevents more expense, more intense care down the road. Simple things like fall prevention activities and advice, the warm and well things that we do at libraries, all of these things might seem small, might seem insignificant, but actually when they're put together, they really make a world of difference for individuals' lives and their independence and well-being. Community anchor organisations need baseline funding to be able to organise activities, and we need to guard against complacency. We can't just expect everything that's going on in our communities to carry on as they are. Everybody's feeling the squeeze, everybody's feeling the cost of living crisis. And I think it's time that we really cemented preventative activities and measures in our local community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Slater. Councillor Michael Harrison.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I want to welcome the Lib Dem group's support for the Prevention Plus pilot that's coming to the executive next week. And particularly, I appreciate what both Councillor Lacey and Councillor Slater said about what a great service it could be. Improving people's lives by focusing on prevention is a key aim for both North Yorkshire Council and the NHS, and it needs to be backed by money and activity. And this shift left of resource and activity to help prevent people needing statutory services, improving their health so they don't need NHS or council services or delay that need until much later in their life is the right thing to do. As part of this pilot, the participating organisations will be well established in their local communities and will use the pilot funding to embed a caseworker model to proactively support people to continue living at home without the need for long-term care and support. And as part of the model, the Council's adult social care teams will embed named practitioners within those pilot sites to create a voluntary sector, public sector true partnership. I can't support the amendment at this stage as I feel it will introduce a danger that it actually gets in the way of the success of the pilot and diverts officers away from it. But what I can say is as the programme develops, consideration will be given to the development of closer links with other council areas, and my commitment is that area committees would form part of that where appropriate. So my plea is, let's support the pilot and the decision at executive next week, and as it develops, if it needs more support in the way that the amendment is proposing, then I would hope full council would support it at that point. So I'll be reluctantly voting against the amendment today.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. That's clear. I can't see anyone who wishes to speak on this. So, Councillor Peter Lacey, would you like to say any concluding remarks?
Thank you. And I look forward to those conversations, Councillor Harrison, and oversight in not discussing this in more detail beforehand. Obviously, a busy period. My only concluding comment is the language of left shift has been around in health and care for decades. It is the right thing, but it does need to be supported. And the challenge here is not to sort of shift left without addressing the fundamental community sort of groups and organisations that actually anchor and underpin these. So I welcome the opportunity to discuss this further in future. I would still urge folk to support this amendment, but I leave it in your hands to administer that process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lacey. Councillor Les, as the mover of the original motion, is there anything you would like to say at this point? Thank you. Okay, therefore, we now move to the vote. Over to you, Barry.
Thank you, Chair. So the vote on the amendment in regards to Prevention Plus. Councillor Aldred.
For.
Councillor Andrews. For. Councillor Arthur.
For.
Councillor Baker.
Against.
Councillor Basterman. Councillor Broadbank.
For.
Councillor Broadbent. Councillor Brodigan.
For.
Councillor Andy Brown.
Against.
Councillor Nick Brown. Councillor Burr. Councillor Chance.
Against.
Councillor Colling.
Against.
Councillor Crane. Councillor Cross. Councillor Cunliffe Lister.
For.
Councillor Dadd. Councillor Davis. Councillor Dickinson.
Against.
Councillor Donoghue Moncrief. Councillor Duncan. Councillor Kevin Foster.
Against.
Councillor Richard Foster. Councillor Gibbs. Councillor Gibbs. Councillor Goodrick. Councillor Goslow.
For.
Councillor Griffiths.
For.
Councillor Grogan. Councillor Harrison. Councillor Hesseltine. Councillor Hugill. Councillor Hull. Councillor Ireton. Councillor Jabor.
Against.
Councillor Jeffels. Councillor Jefferson.
Against.
Councillor Jones. Councillor Jordan.
For.
Councillor Napton. Councillor Lacey. Councillor Les. Councillor Lunn.
Against.
Councillor Mason. Councillor Morehouse. Councillor Myers. Councillor Packham. Councillor Paraskos. Councillor Parsons. Councillor Peacock. Councillor Pearson. Councillor Phillips. Councillor Poskett. Councillor Proud. Councillor Ritchie. Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Schofield. Councillor Sedgwick. Councillor Sefton. Councillor Sharma. Councillor Shaw-Wright. Councillor Sladden. Councillor Slater. Councillor Soloway. Councillor Staveley. Councillor Swanwick.
Against.
Councillor Swires.
Against.
Councillor Taylor. Councillor Thompson. Councillor Timothy.
For.
Councillor Trumper. Councillor Walker. Councillor Warnican. Councillor Watson. Councillor Webster. Councillor Wheel. Councillor White. Councillor Annabel Wilkinson. Councillor Peter Wilkinson. Councillor Williams. Councillor Windass. Thank you, members.
We've got 18 votes for, 62 against, no abstentions. Therefore, the vote is not carried. We now move to the opposition leaders who can speak on the budget. So we'll start with Councillor Peter Lacey. If you'd like to say anything on the budget, Councillor Peter Lacey.
Apologies, thank you. I think in coming to this budget setting process, first of all, can I say that I think our conduct this morning has been very good and respectful, and I think that's important when that isn't necessarily reflected up and down the country. And I think it's been respectful in terms of the proposals largely that have been put forward in terms of their intent, and obviously disappointed that our two Lib Dem budget amendments have not been forwarded. We look forward to perhaps following the example of our Labour colleagues continuing to work on those over the next year and bringing something back next year, along with a number of other suggestions and conversations that we've had to improve what is, we believe, a necessary but not adequate budget arrangement or budget proposal. We do recognise the financial challenges, and we are committed to being financially prudent. Whatever the news was this week in terms of the SEND funding, whether our landing at the end of the MTSF is softer, it still means that we will be at this point facing a deficit budget in 3 years' time. And it is therefore on that basis that we regret the lack of ambition and challenge and progress in addressing those demand pressures. We know work is happening. We celebrate that work when it can come to fruition. But as I've said already, we believe that the budget is necessary, but not adequate. We also recognise, or see rather, in the budget process setting over the last few years, a budget that relies on further butcher block salami slicing rather than long-term sustainable change. And we are getting close to the bone. Having read, as instructed, the impact assessments, it is worrying to see a few significant but not broad sort of potential impacts. We're concerned about the potential impact on some vulnerable groups, on our rural communities, and we believe that there is more that can and should be done to address those needs in future budgets. And we will be working with officers and other members to try and address that over the coming year. Our proposed budget amendments pointed to modest but significant adjustments, and perhaps signalling the desire of this council to move in a slightly different direction, or at least in an accelerated direction, to improve our long-term financial sustainability. That said, we recognise the need. We will, having not had our amendments adopted, having a position that says that we continue along a path that we don't believe will sustain us into the long term. We will not be voting for this budget, but we recognise the need for a stable financial budget to be in place. So thank you very much for the opportunity to comment on behalf of the Lib Dems.
Thank you, Councillor Lacey. And moving clockwise, Councillor Steve Shorite.
It's getting a bit dodgy in my old age. And you'll have to wait while I put my computer on, so I can either read from my notes or just do my usual stuff and go straight in. But my notes are worth it. They really are. I worked really hard. But it is deja vu. I was first elected to Selby District Council in 1997, in those heady days of Tony Blair and Gordon Brown and Peter Mandelson. Oh, how things have changed. The first meeting with senior officers with the Chief Finance Officer, Martin Connor at the time, said difficult decisions. 18 years of Tory austerity was skint. Job cuts are looming. Savings are looming. He did point out the jobs to be lost weren't any of those up there. They were like the ones over there who were going to lose the jobs. 30 years later, difficult decisions. 14 years of Tory and Liberal austerity. We're still having to make cuts. We're still looking at doing job cuts. We're still looking at savings. However, local government is still here. We're still surviving. We're still delivering for the people. And that's what the budget enables us to do. I did read the budget, all of it. I got to page 427 before I had to contact the council about a figure that I got a question about. It was 1,300,091 pence. The officer said, "How do you know it's wrong?" I said, "Well, I don't. It just looks wrong." And he said to me, "Well, you're right, but you're working out is wrong. I'll change it." So you got updated papers. Don't make a blind bit of difference, but that's what happened. I think what you have to look at is from where we come from, Selby and Scarborough, we're the sort of gritty end of the county. We have got most areas of deprivation. We have got most kids with special needs. We have got most kids with SEND problems. We have got most elderly. We have got most council houses. We have lots of empty council houses, which I know Simon is working on. But we do feel that as a budget statement, we are in a position to support it because we don't think there's anything we can really do to oppose that. We would, however, mention, and we are getting slightly fed up of, we've lost our rural services grant again, and Labour are not doing much for us again. But I remember Rishi Sunak at a garden party saying he was going to divert all the money from Labour authorities to Tory authorities, and you didn't say much then, did you? You were all very happy then. Well, things appear to be moving the other way, which you can't fault. However, as was pointed out to me today, £22 million given to this authority for the send debt. No other government has done that. We've got 16 million quid possibilities with the recycling money. No other government's done that. Plus, we've got other money and grants coming. I think last year, one of your members read out a list of thousands and thousands of pounds of extra grants that's coming to this authority over and above what we've had before. So I think we appreciate difficult times ahead. We appreciate what the Labour government is doing. It's delivering on what it said it would do and clearing up the mess that you will always leave us. So we will be supporting this budget. And if you want a copy of my speech, which included Stephen Joseph's Theatre, because I did think at one point the officers had gone there, because if you've ever seen Horton Julia, that's what some of the budget papers look like. And it's about as complicated as Intimate Exchanges, which I'm sure John will appreciate. 8 actors, but it's not, it's only 2. At the end, people would ask, where are the other 6 gone? But never mind, that was all in the distant past. I do think that it's a difficult time. The officers have done really well, trying to be respectful. And we will be supporting the budget.
Thank you, Councillor Steve Shorewright. That was a measured speech without notes, so it's great. Councillor Sefton, as the opposition leader, would you like anything to say on the budget? Councillor Sefton.
Yeah. Good morning, all. I may apologise if I've been grimacing slightly this morning. It's not at what Councillor Shorewright says, it's that I've lost half a tooth. My fillings come out. Yeah. I have to admit, I do have some sympathy towards members of the executive. The thought of me ending up in one of those chairs keeps me awake at night. This authority, like all authorities, has been hamstrung by national pressures, out of control cost rises, national legislation. We're at a situation where we have a new party in government, newish party in government, that after 14 years of decrying austerity has come in power, discovered there's no money left, and has took the decision that my former party took, which was to raise taxes and cut spending. This authority, like all authorities, are up against the wall. And despite that, some authorities have bucked the trend. Those who watched the executive meeting in January will have seen many references to a similar authority to the north, or a neighbouring authority with similar demographics, from Councillor Dadd. That authority hasn't raised council tax, and there hasn't been any mention of them today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sefton. Continuing clockwise, Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Chair. I'm glad I didn't have to follow you, Steve, because that was some grandstand performance, and I'm not quite 30 years in to do that yet. So, unfortunately, we cannot support this budget. It's for a couple of reasons, but the main reason is simple and clear. The proposed 4.8% increase in council rents, at a time when many of our tenants are already struggling with the cost of living. Increasing this is just wrong. This is real money taken from people who often have the least room to absorb the extra costs. I'm also disappointed by the process that's led us here. We are not consulted in the choices open to us in this budget before it was prepared. This is the controlling group's budget, and while I respect the role, it would have been entirely reasonable to be involved with other members while choices were made. There have been endless briefings on numbers, but we're not really involved in spending decisions. I would argue good practice is to involve all members earlier in the process. There's nothing wrong with engaging in earliest opportunity with all members to go through the budget line by line, to look at alternative savings. We have many experienced officers who have been working on this for months, and I have no doubt that had clear direction from the controlling group. Other options could have been explored. This is not about opposing for the sake of it. It's about fairness, transparency, and making sure the burden of balance books does not fail disproportionately with those least able to carry it. Council tax rise of 4.9%, then a double whammy of 4.8% increase in rents just isn't on. For those reasons, we cannot support this budget. In summary, I would like to say and make it clear, I'm not criticising the 151 officer. I've asked questions, but I couldn't get to the end of it, and I didn't have the time to really have meaningful dialogue to get through it. We didn't know until it was presented to the Executive Committee. And secondly, it's interesting that we had to declare an interest today about rents. One member here is a council rent holder. Isn't that interesting? There's only one, and we're making decisions for our people that are really going to affect the people who live in our council properties. And I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. Some of the comments are related to the housing revenue account budget, which will be discussed later. So I think Councillor Simon Myers have taken note of what you've said, and he might wish to respond to that later under the housing revenue account budget item. Finally, Councillor Stuart Parsons.
You're going to get at least 5 minutes back. We've had years and years and years of moans and groans. We've been beaten up by central government of all colours. Obviously, the initial slaps and things didn't affect the ruling group quite so much. They didn't whimper quite so much as they are currently whimpering. But at the end of the day, this is all we've got. This is what we've got to live with. What's the point of opposing a budget if you haven't got an alternative to present? So I'm stuck with it. I'm going to have to go with it. It's not ideal, but it could be a lot worse and could be a lot better, but only when central government gets its head out of the sand and actually funds local authorities correctly.
Thank you, Councillor Parsons. I have Councillor Sam Cross raise his hand.
I think you know what I'm going to talk about. I won't surprise you. I'm going to quote a former member of this council and a county councillor who I respect, who sadly is no longer here, and he's still a town councillor in Filey. That's Councillor Mike Cockrell. I'm going to quote what he said. Veteran Filey Town Council, it says in the papers. I don't normally read stuff. I'm going to put glasses on. Consulted over the Veteran Town Councillor said the Town Council hadn't been consulted over the introduction of the tax by North Yorkshire Council, and he doesn't think North Yorkshire Council has gone into sufficient detail to tell whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, the double taxation. He said the problem of empty homes in Filey have stretched back decades, and he remembers when he was the first town council in 1983 delivering to empty houses. The councillor who has lived in Filey all his life said double tax on its own cannot solve the problem of the lack of homes for young families. Well, I am a father of 4 grown-up children, and currently none of them live in the Filey area because they can't afford a home. The councillor then went, he said, to me, anybody who thinks the idea of double tax for second homes will solve everything is living in cloud cuckoo land. And that's where we are today. Every week, every day almost, I'm contacted by holiday home owners, second home owners that cannot afford to pay their council tax. we have situations now where people are moving to Bridlington because they don't charge double council tax. West Riding don't charge double council tax for anybody. And we are the only area in Yorkshire that are charging double tax for holiday homes. So where are we now? Well, what has happened? We've seen what the impact assessment in the report dated the 31st of January. Nobody has spoken to me about that impact assessment. Nobody has spoken to the hundreds of people that have objected to the council tax, that have forwarded on to officers their objections, and no consultation at all has happened. We've seen what's happened in Warwickshire. In Warwickshire, they applied this. And what happened is they were forced to pay it back. And we could be forced to pay the 14 million that we have robbed of members that have done the duty of giving us, you know, money, but when they're living in houses elsewhere. And I think it's totally wrong. And until we actually do some proper consultation, I'll be voting against.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Cross. I've got Councillor Andy Brown and then Councillor Andrew Williams.
Yeah, I don't normally feel obliged to speak in favour of the members' opposite decisions, but yeah, I think the best decision this council has taken was to impose a second homes premium. We want first homes, not second homes. And there are tourist locations in this council which the people who work there in the tourist industry can't afford to live there because so many are out in one form or other of second homes. So it's absolutely right that we impose the premium. And what it's enabled us to do is not just to build more council houses, it's also helped us to invest in the social care estate, which has reduced our costs and helped our residents by making better quality care homes available into the future. Yeah, so I just think this has been a first-class policy and somebody needed to speak in favour of what you've done.
Thank you. Councillor Andrew Williams.
I'm sorry, Councillor Cross, but you've got your priorities completely and utterly wrong. My sympathies lay with those young people who are struggling to get onto the housing ladder, those people who are homeless, who need a home, and there isn't sufficient social housing to be able to house them. And this policy enables in some small way to help towards tackling those issues. My heart doesn't bleed the slightest for someone who's struggling to make ends meet, running a second home, a luxury, to have a holiday home on the coast, when many people who I represent, their children are struggling to be able to get on the housing ladder at all. Councillor Cross, get real.
Councillor Liz Collins and then Councillor Matt Walker.
Thank you, Chair. I find myself in agreement with colleagues from all over. So I'll start with the one that I'm not in agreement with, which is Councillor Foster. I struggle every year with the budget. 4.99% is quite a lot of money on a Band D property, and I think we all acknowledge that. We also have got huge pressures and we need to continue those services. And I am always reassured by the attention that the leadership and the officers give to our support for council tax or our council tax reduction scheme. So as people have alluded to, we're Scarborough and Selby, we have some of the poorest and most deprived areas. Lots of my residents pay no council tax. So I'd like to say thank you to everybody who supports that. And Councillor Cross, I'm sat next to you, you're wrong. Thank you very much.
Councillor Matt Walker.
Thank you, Chair. We have before us today a budget that asks residents to pay more for less. In fact, it's hard to avoid calling this budget what it truly is, the grouchy budget. This budget is demanding an extra 4.99% for council tax, which is nearly £100 for a Band D, taking us to over £2,000. Yet residents are paying more than ever for services, and the vibrancy of our communities are being hollowed out. Take the proposal in Appendix G. Across the former Harrogate and Scarborough districts, including Knaresborough, Harrogate, Ripon, Scarborough, Whitby and Filey, the council is ending the free provision of Christmas trees and hanging baskets. Why? To save just £27,000 in a £650 million budget. Their own equality impact assessment warns that this may negatively affect Christian communities and civic pride, and their mitigation shrug their shoulders and find alternatives. We know what this means. No Christmas trees or towns and parish councils will have to pick up the bill. This budget claims to have no money for festive trees, yet there's a capital outlay of 1.1 million to upgrade the Filey Brig caravan and camping site. So I ask, when did glamping pods become the higher priority to our living towns and welcoming them? But the grouchy budget gets darker. The papers clearly set out £500,000 of cuts to disabled children over the next 2 years. There's £50,000 removed from public health community involvement, weakening the voices of older people and minority groups, just when demand for care is rising sharply. This council is even discontinuing free newspapers in libraries. For many isolated or digitally excluded residents, that newspaper is their only window into the world. And today that window is being slammed shut in their faces. This executive seems to think that vulnerable children, lonely older people and low-income families are not neighbours to support, just budget lines to rationalise. And there's the famous, infamous toilet tax, 50p to spend a penny, which senior Conservative members have campaigned publicly against. If this administration cannot agree amongst themselves how people should spend a penny, how can residents trust them with £650 million of public money? The council has run out of ideas, so instead it reaches for the old leverage. Let's put parking charges up for car parks by 10%, even as traders and town centres are struggling. I will not be supporting this budget.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. I've got Councillor Jordan and then Councillor Michelle Donoghue-Moncrief.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I didn't realise we'd gone into just debating anything on the budget. So I thought I'd just highlight something that I was made aware of yesterday. And I have to say, first of all, well, big congratulations to Councillor Steve Shaw, right, who did a brilliant speech there. I thought, well done, sir. That was very correct. I'm going to Stowe. I'm going to Stowe on the Wold at the end of March. And now I know I can use a poll car. Could I suggest that we up the mileage rates for councillors so they pay more, and this will help save the budget and help balance it. Thank you.
Councillor Donoghue-Moncrief.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Firstly, I just want to, I think the points we made here about hanging baskets and Christmas trees. Unfortunately, the parishes that I represent don't have the bourgeois luxury of an upper tier authority paying for their Christmas trees and their flowers and cutting their grass. They live in the real world. So I'm really diddums if posh people in nice parts of the county are going to actually have to pay for it themselves. I really couldn't give a stuff. So I am all in favour of people on Scarborough Town Council, Harrogate Town Council paying for this themselves. And I've made that point to the executive that we cannot have a two-tier system going forward like that. So I have no problem supporting that. So any balances brought forward will be supported. I'll make a brief point because I have spoken to the leader about this. The issue about toilets at the moment, if the status quo remains, we will have a two-tier system where people that use a public toilet in Scarborough and Filey pay, and parts of the county they don't pay. That is not fair either, right? So it is easy to say make everything free, but at the moment, every time that decision is delayed, it is unfair on those people in those communities as well who have to pay to use these services. Also unfair on the parishes who took over toilets on the understanding that they could charge in order to offset the costs. So fairness is an interesting concept depending on where you live and what you do. So it's easy to go on Facebook and say, I've stopped this. You haven't. You've made it more unfair for people on the coast, and that's not acceptable. brief point on second homes. I live 3 miles from Filey, and I'll admit nobody's contacted me about the second homes thing at all. So I don't know whether it's me or what. The only thing I will say is, given that the first amount of money is to be spent where I live in Hummonby, there is a problem here where this council cannot now avoid the fact that if it is subsidising housing to be built, it also needs to start thinking about using some of that money towards infrastructure in the places that it is being used. We can't, I accept it's a very laudable concept, 100% ring fencing. It is not realistic when the road on which you are doing it, which we'll access onto, is literally crumbling to pieces. And Councillor Squires will know what I mean, and we all think, because she used to represent Hummonby. I can't explain to residents how North Yorkshire Council is actually now contributing to strain on the infrastructure, but it hasn't got the funding to actually support that infrastructure. This fund needs to be used to support infrastructure as well. We can't avoid that issue anymore, and highways is a very laudable use of some of that money. And I'll leave it there.
Thank you. We have spoken in this debate not only about this particular item on the budget, but also other items. So I wonder if anyone else wishes to speak on the general budget items. Councillor Dant.
Thank you, Chair. It's usually my job to sort of sweep up. I was intending just to talk in general terms, and I was going to try and resist responding to some comments, but there is one or two that do need a response to. Councillor Seston, I'm pleased you're here. The Reform have a lot to say before an election usually. Well, it's your opportunity to give your view and your alternative. And you did refer to a neighbouring authority. Let's be honest, it's County Durham. Yes, it's very true. They've done a little U-turn lately over the last 24 or 48 hours. They're only putting their council tax up, I might add, and they're dubbing it and badging it as social care. Well, we all know that's just council tax by 2%. But that's the same authority, let's not forget. And if you look at their papers and statement, and I think I'm going to be very kind how I say this, their Section 151 officer has given a warning that in future that council tax rise must be considered, because they've looked at headlines. In my view, they're looking at headlines today in view of impending elections in the North East and trying to keep their council tax down as low as they can this year. But that's got its own implications, because again, it's the same authority, and we're back to fairness and looking after vulnerable people. It's the same authority that's took an axe to their council tax relief scheme, call it what you want, to the most vulnerable, where they're now charging the most vulnerable. If we did that, it'd be the people of Scarborough and Selby in the main that would be disaffected by it. So there's a choice to make, isn't there? There's always a choice to make. It's also the same authority, and we're back to Sam Cross's point about second homes. Of course, we heard, and I think I said it a meeting or two ago, we heard a lot from Reform and Nigel Farage about the second homes premium, how pernicious it was a tax on aspiration and all the usual stuff that they come out with. But I note that County Durham hasn't reversed their second homes council tax premium. At the last measure, I think they're getting £3 million. Not only haven't they reversed it, it's part of their core budget. So let's not talk with forked tongues when we're discussing councils and council tax and budgets. I look at or hear what Kevin said, and he knew I would respond, is suggesting that they've had no input into the choices we made. Well, today's input, but to suggest that they're being kept somehow in the dark over budget proposals, I refute that. I absolutely refute that 100%. We started this budget process 12 months. We've had a regular update at members' seminar. You've had the offer of visits. I don't know whether you took it or not, because Gary would never tell me, as much as I push him to. Whether you've had visits from Gary to explain things and to fetch forward amendments and the like. So I absolutely refute that statement. Sam,
second homes, I'm not going to labour the point because, quite honestly, I think a lot of it has been said on my behalf, especially by Councillor Brown and Michelle, and also Councillor Williams. We're never going to agree on this, but what I can say is I'm very proud indeed that the first scheme, as a result of the 10 or 12 million pound that we're raising this year from second homes, is going just outside your division. And that's something to be celebrated. I take the point from Michelle that through the planning process, that must be looked at in terms of infrastructure. Andy Brown actually nicked most of my words. Matt, you talk about business cases, and I forget what project. Oh, that was it. It was Filey. We're back to Filey again. There was a business case for that. It's actually an invest to save proposal. And if you wish me to spend a bit of time outside the meeting and talk you through it, I'm happy to do so. It's also, I've got to say, pretty insulting to suggest that us round this table and on this side of the chamber have turned our back on vulnerable people and people in need. Everything we've done over the last 4 or 5 years, and in fact before that as a county council, has been prioritising those at what the layman would call bottom of the pile, those in need, those vulnerable people. There's nothing in it for us politically, as you will know, but we've done it because it's the right thing to do. And as long as I'm here, we'll continue to do it. We have a council tax reduction scheme that reflects that. We have a household support fund that reflects that. Even with, dare I say it, the home to school transport changes, that reflected that as well. I'm very proud to stand here and propose this budget. I've got to say we started the year with the fairer funding prospect. It's now, in my view, I'm afraid to say, become an unfair funding outcome. That said, Steve's right to raise the SEND windfall. I'll call it a windfall because it's only recompensing 90% of what we've spent historically. The real win will be if the government continues in the direction of travel that they're talking about and gives us that funding going forward. That could be a massive game changer. And I'll tell you why I'm proud, because we are, if I may just wind up, we are protecting the vulnerable. We've protected frontline services. We've got falling debt, and above anything else, we're not an authority that's looking for exceptional circumstances and raising council tax by some that are considering it by 9%. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dadd. Councillor Shorite, you wanted to raise something?
Yeah, bit of information. I do have connections with Bridlington. If anybody's moving from Filey to Bridlington to avoid double council tax, they're in for a rude awakening. It started last April.
Councillor Les, as the mover of the original motion, is there anything you would like to add?
Chairman, thank you. I'm going to try and avoid anything that Gareth has already picked up on, but I do want to mention one or two things from the debate. Sam, I'm very proud that this council almost unanimously decided to introduce second homes premium, but I'm especially proud that I think that we are still the only council in England that is using all that second homes premium for housing initiatives. We've not taken it into the base budget as we could have done. Stuart, you're right. We should always have alternatives if we're going to vote against. And Kevin, I do take some issue with, of course, the budget debate is led by the leading group. I mean, that's what we are here to do. But to say that you have no role in the choices, no engagement with it, I mean, you must be occupying a different world to the world that I'm in. With Peter Lacey, I do agree with you, Peter, that debate should always be respectful, and I think by and large it has been, but perhaps one or two of our colleagues have strayed. But I do take issue with you, Peter, where you say a lack of ambition. to take 8 councils and move them into one, to be safe and legal, and then carry on being safe and legal, to now make £63 million worth of savings and rising. That isn't only ambition, that is actually achievement. And we've also identified the work that is still to do. And then finally, Steve, you lost me when you got to the Stephen Joseph Theatre. So you might want to explain to me. Yep. and the Tunbridge Wells Garden Party has been quoted and misquoted, and certainly misquoted. But you said about rural support grant again, and fair funding again. I will continue to keep saying about rural support grant, the loss of it, and the fair funding not being fair to us, because it's not doing any favours for Selby or Scarborough either. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. I think Councillor Shorite probably would like to circulate that that speech that you had prepared to all of us, because that we are all curious to find out. Is there anything, Councillor Dad?
Sorry, Chairman, with your indulgence, I'd just like to refer members to because the legality of second homes premium has been mentioned. I think it's important that I refer members and highlight the impact assessment that circulated within the papers.
Indeed, and it was mentioned at the start of the meeting, the impact assessment. We are now going to move to the vote on the recommendation concerning the revenue budget for 26-27 and the medium-term financial strategy 27-28 to 28-29, as amended by the motion of Councillor Liz Colling earlier. So it's over to Barry now for the named vote.
Thank you, Chair. So that's exactly right. That's what we're voting on. There's going to be 4 other votes with regards to the budget. So we're not voting yet on the council tax, on the capital 5-year spending plan, or the housing revenue account budget, or the council tax resolution report. So there'll be separate votes for that one. So this is just on the revenue budget and the medium-term financial strategy. So again, if members can say if they're for, against, or abstaining. Thank you. Councillor Aldred.
Against.
Councillor Andrews.
Against.
Councillor Arthur.
For.
Councillor Baker.
For.
Councillor Basterman. Councillor Broadbank.
Against.
Councillor Broadbent. Councillor Brodigan.
Against.
Councillor Andy Brown.
Against.
Councillor Nick Brown. Councillor Burr. Councillor Chance.
For.
Councillor Colling.
For.
Councillor Crane. Councillor Cross. Councillor Cunliffe-Lister.
Against.
Councillor Dadd. Councillor Davis. Councillor Dickinson.
For.
Councillor Donoghue-Moncrieff.
Against.
Councillor Duncan. Councillor Kevin Foster.
Against.
Councillor Richard Foster. Councillor Gibbs. Councillor Goodrick. Councillor Goslow.
Against.
Councillor Griffiths.
Against.
Councillor Grogan. Councillor Harrison. Councillor Heseltine. Councillor Hugill. Councillor Hull. Councillor Ireton. Councillor Jabor.
For.
Councillor Jeffels. Councillor Jefferson. Councillor Jones. Councillor Jordan.
For.
Councillor Napton. Councillor Lacey. Councillor Les. Councillor Lunn.
For.
Councillor Mason. Councillor Morehouse. Councillor Myers. Councillor Packham. Councillor Paraskos. Councillor Parsons. Councillor Peacock.
For.
Councillor Pearson. Councillor Phillips. Yeah, thank you. Councillor Poskett. Councillor Proud. Councillor Ritchie. Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Schofield.
Yeah.
Councillor Sedgwick. Councillor Seston. Councillor Sharma. Councillor Shaw-Wright. Councillor Sladden. Councillor Slater. Councillor Soloway. Councillor Staveley, Councillor Swanwick,
For.
Councillor Swires,
For.
Councillor Taylor, Councillor Thompson, Councillor Timothy,
Against.
Councillor Trumper, Councillor Walker, Councillor Warnican,
Against.
Councillor Watson, Councillor Webster, Councillor Wheel, Councillor White, Councillor Annabel Wilkinson, Councillor Peter Wilkinson, Councillor Williams, Councillor Windass. Thank you, members.
Interesting that. I thought Carl Arthur said for.
Okay, we've got the outcome. We've got 59 votes for, 19 against, and 1 abstention. Therefore, the vote is carried. Given that we've made actually some progress this morning, I thought that we can continue with this and vote on all the other items of the budget before lunch, if members can indulge me. Then we can go for lunch and return for 2 o'clock for the extraordinary meeting. Is that agreeable to everyone? It means that the lunch is going to be delayed a little bit, but I think we should be in a position to finish everything in time. Okay, I see nods. So we will press ahead. The second part is Council Tax 2627. I call on Councillor Gareth Ladd to move recommendations 1B, 1C, 1Q, and 1R regarding the Council Tax for 2627 at pages 5 to 7 of the main agenda.
I think the main debate has really happened, Chair, so I'll just formally move as printed.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Les. Anyone else wishes to speak? Councillor Andy Brown.
Yeah, I can understand why it's necessary to raise council tax by 4.99%. I can't justify it as right. We're making decisions with our arms forced up our back as a result of years of central government underfunding. And let's not fool ourselves. It's going to put real pressure on some of our residents. It's going to put real pressure on small businesses. And so I can't vote for 4.99% as acceptable for them, even though it's necessary for us. And I was going to stop there, but I also want to just raise the issue of send, because I don't often praise this government, but I think this send decision is really helpful, and it seriously undermines some of the logic behind our budget. Because it's not just 22.9 million pounds of extra money. You know, that's a serious thing in itself. It's a strong declaration of intent to remove the central risk to our budget, which is the send budget. That's the one that's consistently been overspent. That's the one that's worrying us, and we don't know what to do about it if it spirals out of control. And removing the serious prospect of removing that risk does raise questions about whether the 4.99% is genuinely necessary. Yeah, I realise that they're so quickly raised that it's not practical for us to do it today. So I would basically say this: 4.99% is practically understandable, completely understand why you've had to do it, but it's morally wrong, and I want to record a vote against the moral wrong.
Thank you, Councillor Andy Brown. Do we have any other speakers on this? Councillor Dadd. Sorry, Councillor Dadd. Sorry, I think Councillor Myers has just raised his hand, and I think you've got the right at the end to speak. So, Councillor Myers.
Thank you. As to Councillor Brown's point, there is no difference between our moral duty to our residents in terms of doing what we can to keep costs down for them and keeping a solvent council that's able to deliver services. And so to draw that distinction in my respectful opinion is a false distinction. The council must remain solvent so that it can deliver services, essential services, and particularly services to our most disadvantaged residents. But just on the more general point of council tax rises, we must do what we must do in the financial circumstances that we face. And I'm proud of the fact that we are able to not make major cuts to frontline services. That's something that has underpinned all the savings that we've tried to make. But actually, we want to talk about unfairness. I agree with the new MP, the Labour MP for the Ribble Valley. I don't care what politics people have, if they talk sense, who has highlighted something I've been picking up on for years, which is the unfairness of the council tax system as a way of funding local government. And the fact is that our residents, our Band D residents, pay £1,000 a year more in council tax than the equivalents who live in Wandsworth or the city of Westminster. They earn twice as much on average, sometimes more than that. And interestingly, in the week that it was announced that we are the third best value for money council in the UK, we're third and we have to charge the council tax we have. Wandsworth is 10th and they charge half the council tax. So they're not making the savings out of being efficient. They're making the savings because they're in a different financial position. They get more money from central government. It doesn't cost them the same to deliver services. So until governments are brave enough to address the inherent unfairness, we will be stuck with having to balance our budget by raising council tax. It's unfortunate nobody does it to make themselves popular, but our duty is to sustain this council.
Thank you, Councillor Myers. And finally, Councillor Dadd.
Thank you. I think it was, let me just take a step back. This isn't just setting this year's council tax, that's technically what we're doing. And I must say, I agree with Andy. Nobody in this chamber wants to put council tax up by 4.99%. Nobody. No, but we're not living in a world of unicorns and rainbows. We're living in the real world. You can only play with the cards you're dealt. And we're also setting a budget, and this council tax will underpin the MTFS going forward. May well take a different view next year. But I think it was Churchill that once said, the difference between a politician and a statesman is a politician will look at the next election, in other words, short term, and a statesman will look at the next generation. And that's the difference, and that's driven our whole line of thinking. In terms of SEND, you're right, it's been a welcome windfall, but it's only going to be helpful if that direction of travel, as I described it earlier, is ongoing. That's when it'll be really helpful. But I'll just give a word of warning over that. Because quite honestly, if you were Rachel Reeves or any of the successors in Treasury, and the DFE come out for a chunk of money, that money's got to come from somewhere. And which department is the first department to face cuts? It's local government. So that we may well end up in a situation where the funding SEND or shifting it to the Department for Education, but taking a further top slice of local government. So we'll have to see how that pans out. But by and large, it's welcome. I think I'll
leave it at that.
Thank you. We now move to the named vote. Barry Khan.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the vote on the council tax for 26-27 and also includes the empty and second homes premium policy and also the council tax reduction scheme. So again, if you can state whether you're for, against or abstaining for it. Councillor Aldred.
Abstain.
Councillor Andrews.
For.
Councillor Arthur.
For.
Councillor Baker.
For.
Councillor Basterman. Councillor Broadbank.
Against.
Councillor Broadbent. Councillor Brodigan.
Abstain.
Councillor Andy Brown.
Against.
Councillor Nick Brown. Councillor Burr. Please. Councillor Chance.
For.
Councillor Colling.
For.
Councillor Crane. Councillor Cross. Councillor Cunliffe Lister.
For.
Councillor Dadd. Councillor Davis. Councillor Dickinson.
For.
Councillor Donahue Moncrief.
Against.
Councillor Duncan. Councillor Kevin Foster.
Against.
Councillor Richard Foster. Councillor Gibbs. Councillor Goodrick. Councillor Goslow.
Abstain.
Councillor Griffiths.
Abstain.
Councillor Grogan. Councillor Harrison. Councillor Hesseltine. Councillor Hugill. Councillor Hull. Councillor Ireton. Councillor Jabor.
For.
Councillor Jeffels. Councillor Janet Jefferson.
For.
Councillor Jones. Councillor Jordan.
For.
Councillor Napton. Councillor Lacey. Councillor Les. Councillor Lunn.
For.
Councillor Mason. Councillor Morehouse. Councillor Myers. Councillor Packham. Councillor Paraskos. Councillor Parsons. Councillor Peacock.
For.
Councillor Pearson. Councillor Phillips. Councillor Poskett. Councillor Proud. Councillor Ritchie. Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Schofield. Councillor Sedgwick. Councillor Seston. Councillor Sharma. Councillor Shaw-Wright. Councillor Sladden. Councillor Slater. Councillor Soloway. Councillor Staveley. Councillor Swanwick.
For.
Councillor Swires.
For.
Councillor Taylor. Councillor Thompson. Councillor Timothy.
Abstain.
Councillor Trumper. Councillor Walker. Councillor Warnican. Councillor Watson. Councillor Webster. Councillor Wheel. Councillor White. Councillor Annabel Wilkinson. Councillor Peter Wilkinson. Councillor Williams. Councillor Windass. Councillor Windass? Four. All right, thank you. There we go.
We've got 61 for, 9 against, and 9 abstained. So the vote is carried. The third part is Capital 5-year spending plan, Treasury Management Strategy 26-27, and Capital Strategy. I call on Councillor Gareth Dadd to move recommendations 4A to 4E regarding the Capital 5-year plan, regarding the Capital 5-year spending plan, Treasury Management Strategy, and Capital Strategy at pages 5 to 7 of the main agenda.
Formally move them, Chair.
Do we have a seconder? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Les. Anyone wishes to speak? No speakers. Councillor Dadd, would you like to say anything on this?
No.
Okay, we now move to the vote. No, not yet. On this Capital 5 years. So we are on the third part, the Capital 5-year spending plan. Is it on this one or the? Yeah.
Okay. on the capital plan, which I gather we're on, there's some good and sensible investments in this capital plan. I'm particularly pleased to see the housing and care service investments as a consequence of the second home plan, as we've already talked about. But, with effective management of resources, we could do so much more. We lost £11.7 million on Kex Gill, consequence of poor contract management in the early stages. And I note that the increase in the allocated reserves is actually 13.7 million. What a waste. Imagine what we could have done with that money. We could have cut fuel bills for people by in putting batteries into their homes. We could have invested further in the leisure and library services. We could have had local investments, such as the Skipton members are very keen on Engine Shed Lane being completed. All of that could have been done with that £11.7 million. Then consider the waste on underutilised buildings. I challenge anybody to walk around this building on a normal day and tell me it's efficiently utilised. The same is true in Skipton, the same is true in Harrogate. Every unoccupied office or desk means heating costs and carbon use that's not necessary, and it's a loss of a potential capital receipt on sales. 4 years after we came together, we still cannot provide elected members with a reliable map of what this council owns, and we won't supply it to parish councils either. That's a real scandal. Then consider the risks we're taking over Brierley Homes. It is the right thing to have a unit which is trying to build council homes, fully support that. But it's the wrong thing to be overconfident and take too many risks. We have 22.5 million of loans at risk to Brierley Homes, and I note that that's rising to 34.5 million. Are we sure that money is safe? Cambridgeshire lost 60 million on a similar scheme. So I will be voting against the capital plan, not because I like unicorns and rainbows, but because I think we need a proper strategic assessment of what capital resources we really need and a serious rethink about selling off and a rationalisation that goes beyond. I know the noble efforts, and I genuinely do think Councillor Dadd's put some work into this area. I think it's way short of what we need. And Greens and Independents hate waste, so I shall be voting against it.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Do we have any other speakers on this? Councillor Sam Cross.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to agree the councillor there. I did mention to the Chief Executive this morning the money that had been invested, and I want to thank him because he updated with more figures than I thought had been wasted on this. And I think one thing that we ought to start doing, and I think it's very important that we do it, is we look at the core business and what we should be doing, not trying to be developers, not trying to be builders. You know, let's stick what we should be doing, providing services for our residents. And I find that really important. And as I mentioned, I did talk about it today, and some serious thought ought to be given to what we do with Brierley Homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cross. Any other speakers on this? Therefore, I would go to Councillor Dadd for his right of reply.
Thank you. I mean, the quick response over Catskill, Andy, is we could have saved a lot more than an £11 million overspend on it as a result of various factors, usually out of our control if we hadn't done the thing at all. It was a risk that we were prepared to take, and I accept that in due course there will be a wash up over it, for the want of a better term, and it be reported accordingly. In terms of the Brierley Group, and Brierley Homes has been mentioned, I refer members to the statement I made at the last full council meeting, including the present balance sheet losses, trading losses of Brierley Homes. We are still nearly £50 million over the last few years better off as a result of our investments in the Brierley Group of companies. That's £50 million that's helped us prop up services that Sam is so passionate about. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor Dadd. We now move to the vote.
Thank you, Chair. So the vote on the capital 5-year spending plan, treasury management strategy and capital strategy. Councillor Aldred.
Abstain.
Councillor Andrews.
Abstain.
Councillor Arthur.
For.
Councillor Baker.
For.
Councillor Basterman. Councillor Broadbank.
Abstain.
Councillor Broadbent. Councillor Brodigan.
Abstain.
Councillor Andy Brown.
Against.
Councillor Nick Brown. Councillor David Chance. Councillor Colling.
For.
Councillor Crane. Councillor Cross. Councillor Cunliffe Lister.
Abstain.
Councillor Dadd. Councillor Davis. Councillor Dickinson.
For.
Councillor Donoghue Moncrief.
For.
Councillor Duncan. Councillor Kevin Foster.
Against.
Councillor Richard Foster. Councillor Gibbs. Councillor Goodrick. Councillor Goslow.
Abstain.
Councillor Griffiths.
Abstain.
Councillor Grogan. Councillor Harrison. Councillor Heseltine. Councillor Hugill. Councillor Hull. Councillor Ireton. Councillor Jabor.
For.
Councillor Jeffels. Councillor Jefferson. Councillor Jones. Councillor Jordan.
For.
Councillor Napton. Councillor Lacey. Councillor Les. Councillor Lunn.
For.
Councillor Mason. Councillor Morehouse. Councillor Myers. Councillor Packham. Councillor Paraskos. Councillor Parsons. Councillor Peacock. Councillor Pearson. Councillor Phillips. Councillor Poskett. Councillor Proud. Councillor Ritchie. Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Schofield. Councillor Sedgwick. Councillor Seston. Councillor Sharma. Councillor Shaw-Wright. Councillor Sladden. Councillor Slater. Councillor Soloway. Councillor Staveley. Councillor Swanwick.
For.
Councillor Swires.
For.
Councillor Taylor. Councillor Thompson. Councillor Timothy.
Abstain.
Councillor Trumper. Councillor Walker. Councillor Warnican. Councillor Watson. Councillor Webster. Councillor Wheel. Councillor White. Councillor Annabel Wilkinson. Councillor Peter Wilkinson. Councillor Williams. Councillor Windass. Thank you.
Members, we've got 60 votes for, 7 against and 12 abstentions. So the vote is carried. The fourth part of this budget item is the housing revenue account budget 26-27 and medium-term financial plan 27-8 and 28-29. But before we proceed further, I would like to pass to Barry Khan to explain the position about voting on this matter.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As with anything, if you've got a disclosable pecuniary interest in this matter, then you shouldn't take part. So if you're affected by any of the rent changes, then the advice would be to declare your interest and leave the room. But everyone else who hasn't got an interest can take part.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Simon Myers to move recommendations 4F to 4J regarding the housing revenue account budget and medium-term financial plan at pages 5 to 7 of the main agenda.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to say thank you to officers who have worked on the business plan for the housing revenue account, and to members of the overview and scrutiny committee who put a lot of work into both the policies and the means of paying for it that face the council. All members will know that on vesting day, we inherited 3 separate housing revenue accounts, none of which were remotely compliant with the standards set by the new regulator of social housing. With systems that didn't record data properly, with a backlog of repairs, Perhaps I'll say no more than that. But it's been a real challenge for us, and there's a great deal to be done. And when you look at the medium-term business plan, something which none of us really like to see is in this coming year and the next year, there's a predicted shortfall, which will be met by effectively borrowing from our own housing revenue account. And why is that? That is because of the reason that most members email me about frequently, particularly down in Selby, which is about voids. And it's about a backlog of 3,000 repairs. It's about our commitment to decarbonisation and to warmer homes. And so that's all set out. Members have been through seminars on that and asked many questions, and the Overview and Scrutiny Committee have looked at it in considerable detail. Now, Councillor Kevin Foster. Oh, well, you're all moving about politically all the time around here, so you may end up over there, Kevin.
Okay, Councillor Meyer. Councillor Meyer.
Now, Councillor Foster, when we were addressing the housing revenue account, the general fund revenue account, the first item on the agenda, said that he was going to vote against it because of this item that we're putting up, council rents. They're two separate items, Kevin. But the question is this: after many years of underinvestment, after we have new standards to adhere to, what do we do to make our housing sustainable? It's very important to remember that it is our council tenants who pay for council homes. We don't pay for them. Ratepayers don't pay for them. They don't pay for the improvements. They don't pay for the new housing. It's paid for by council rents. And the bottom line is this: if we want a sustainable, steady growth in our ability to provide social housing for our residents, and our commitment to providing decent homes for them, homes they can afford to keep warm, homes that aren't damp and full of mould, then we need to make increases to council rents. The government recognises this. The government recognises the underfunding of council housing for years, social housing. That's why they've given us the assurance of 10 years of CPI plus 1% in raises in council rents. And so that is what is proposed in these recommendations. A rise of 4.8% to enable us to deliver more and to deliver better, to cut the living costs of our residents by transforming rundown homes into decent homes that can be kept warm and safe for them. 4.8% CPI plus 1, and then 2% on shared ownership, which is the contractual maximum on that. So I'm happy to move the recommendations, Chairman.
Thank you.
This is the best way for this council to fulfil its commitment to provide decent social housing across North Yorkshire.
Thank you, Councillor Myers. Councillor Les is seconding. Anyone wishes to speak? Councillor Schofield.
Thank you, Chair. Unfortunately, I feel I can't support this and the proposed 4.8% increase in the council rents. At a time when many of our tenants are already struggling with the cost of living, increasing rents at this level sends the wrong message. As a private renter, these rates would be crippling. These are not abstract figures on a spreadsheet. This is real money taken from people who often have the least ability to absorb extra costs. So this is not about opposing simply for the sake of it. It's about standing up for fairness, being open and transparent, and ensuring the responsibility of balancing the books doesn't fall heaviest on those least able to bear it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else wishes to speak? Councillor Crane.
I'm afraid that comment was born of ignorance. Council rents are put back into the council houses. Every single penny of it. So the money that we are raising through putting council rents up is going back to improve the very properties that people are paying the rents on. And if you don't want to put it up by 4.8%, that's fine. Put a suggestion forward what it should go up by and tell us what you're not going to invest in. And I suspect you don't have the answer.
Councillor Andy Brown and Councillor Melanie Davis after that.
Yeah, it's not born of ignorance to be aware of the impact on ordinary people of their rent going up. It's based on deep practicality. This is something that's going to really hurt people. And the rate of inflation would be the reasonable rate to put the cost up by. And where I'd like to save the money that we're investing on that housing stock, quite rightly, is by some of those savings I outlined on the management of the capital projects.
Thank you. Councillor Melanie Davis. Sorry, Councillor Crane. Councillor Crane, you've had a chance to
Where's
speak.
the point of order, Chairman? So I'm allowed to bring it up, aren't I? Well, the point of order is that it's not funding the capital programme, so that's just plain wrong.
That's technicality. Councillor Melanie Davis.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, it isn't a technicality. People do not understand the housing revenue account. And, to me, I was absolutely horrified when I heard that my authority, where I was a member before, had actually run out of money in it. But what I just want to say is it's about time we were honest with people. I don't want to put people's council rents up. I grew up in a council house. I know how difficult that is. But every year we don't do it, we're just delaying pain. You have to start explaining to people, and people in this chamber want to realise there's no good standing up and moaning now. If you don't want budgets to go up, then don't vote through an increase for our staff. They're the hard rules that we have to come to terms with. I don't like it. It doesn't matter who's in government, but I think we're just not honest with people. The rents have to go up because we pay our staff a decent salary. Those who will go out and do the repairs, and those who will carry on and offer that service, and those who will be there when they're made homeless, and all the other things that can happen to people. This is not the place to argue about that. The place to argue about that and people being in poverty is out there in the big world. And we've had very, very horrible time for about the last 13, 14 years. So let's do what's relevant here, but let's please be honest with people. Things have to go up because costs are going up. They know that. Yes, I hate the fact that they're all having to find money for heating. They're all having to find extra money to eat. But that is not something we can solve here. You have to pick your place, but you also have to be honest with people, and we're not. And every time we're not, then they walk away and they think they're all the same. Let's not be the same. Let's try and spend our time explaining to people why it's a difficult decision. We're not wasting it. We're just trying to make things work for them better.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Dadd.
Just very quickly, Chair, and I don't want any members. I mean, I first become aware of housing revenue accounts and how they operate because, of course, Hambleton didn't have council housing. It was all out to registered providers. But I don't want anybody being under the misunderstanding that what Councillor Brown spoke about 5-10 minutes ago on the capital plan has any bearing on the HRA at all. Councillor Crane is quite correct. And finally, it's not often that you agree with Councillor Davis, but wise words, Mel.
Thank you. Anyone else wishes to speak on this item? Councillor Myers, would you like to exercise your right of reply?
Thank you, Chair. I'm very grateful to Councillor Davis for putting very plainly what the situation is. This isn't about councils wasting money. This isn't about anybody wanting to make life more expensive for our residents. It's about delivering a good service to them. It's about delivering better housing for them. And it's about delivering housing for future generations of people in North Yorkshire to be able to access social housing. between 2016 and 2020, councils had to cut their rent by 1% every year. That cost tens of millions of pounds to the housing revenue account. And we have to have the money to be ambitious, to deliver a first-rate service to our residents. So no, I don't want to put rents up, but I do want the housing revenue account to survive. I want council housing in North Yorkshire. I want more of it.
Thank you. We now move to the vote.
Thank you, Chair. So this is on the housing revenue account and associated decisions, including rent. Councillor Aldred.
For.
Councillor Andrews. For. Councillor Arthur.
For.
Councillor Baker.
For.
Councillor Basterman. Councillor Broadbank.
For.
Councillor Broadbent. Councillor Brodigan.
For.
Councillor Andy Brown.
Against.
Councillor Nick Brown. Councillor Chance.
For.
Councillor Colling.
For.
Councillor Crane. Councillor Cross. Councillor Cunliffe Lister.
For.
Councillor Dadd. Councillor Davis. Councillor Dickinson.
For.
Councillor Donoghue Moncrief.
For.
Councillor Duncan. Councillor Kevin Foster.
Abstain.
Councillor Richard Foster. Councillor Gibbs. Councillor Goodrick. Councillor Goslow.
For.
Councillor Griffith.
For.
Councillor Grogan. Councillor Harrison. Councillor Heseltine. Councillor Hugill. Councillor Hull. Councillor Ireton. Councillor Jabor.
For.
Councillor Jeffels. Councillor Jefferson. Councillor Jones. Councillor Jordan.
For.
Councillor Napton. Councillor Lacey. Councillor Les. Councillor Lunn.
For.
Councillor Mason. Councillor Morehouse. Councillor Myers. Councillor Packham. Councillor Paraskos. Councillor Parsons. Councillor Peacock.
For.
Councillor Pearson. Councillor Phillips. Councillor Poskett. Councillor Proud. Oh yeah, thank you. Councillor Ritchie. Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Schofield. Councillor Sedgwick. Councillor Seston. Councillor Sharma. Councillor Shaw-Wright. Councillor Sladden. Councillor Slater. Councillor Soloway. Councillor Staveley. Councillor Swanwick.
For.
Councillor Swires.
For.
Councillor Taylor. Councillor Thompson. Councillor Timothy.
For.
Councillor Trumper. Councillor Walker. Councillor Warnecan. Councillor Watson. Councillor Webster. Councillor Wheel. Councillor White. Councillor Annabel Wilkinson. Councillor Peter Wilkinson. Councillor Andrew Williams. And Councillor Windass. Thank you.
We have 71 votes in favour, 5 against, and 2 abstentions. The fifth part of this budget item is Council Tax Resolution Report 2627. I call on Councillor Gareth Dadd to move recommendations regarding the Council Tax Resolution Report at page 425 of the main agenda. And as I mentioned earlier, please note the updates as per the supplementary papers published on the Council website and circulated by Gary Fielding. Councillor Dadd.
Thank you, Chair. Just formally move.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Les, thank you. Anyone wishes to speak on this? I can't see any hands up. Councillor Dadd, is there anything you would like to say in reply?
Not a thing.
We will now move to the final named vote for this meeting.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Aldred.
For.
Councillor Andrews. For. Councillor Arthur.
For.
Councillor Baker.
For.
Councillor Basterman. Councillor Broadbank.
For.
Councillor Broadbent. Councillor Brodigan.
For.
Councillor Andy Brown.
Even I am for.
What was that? Councillor Nick Brown. Councillor Chance.
4.
Councillor Colling.
4.
Councillor Crane. Councillor Cross. Councillor Cunliffe-Lister.
4.
Councillor Dadd. Councillor Davis. Councillor Dickinson.
4.
Councillor Donoghue Moncrief.
4.
Councillor Duncan. Councillor Kevin Foster.
4.
Councillor Richard Foster. Councillor Gibbs. Councillor Goodrick. Councillor Goslow.
4.
Councillor Griffiths.
4.
Councillor Grogan. Councillor Harrison. Councillor Heseltine. Councillor Hugill. Councillor Hull. Councillor Ireton. Councillor Jabor.
4.
Councillor Jeffels. Councillor Jefferson. Councillor Jones. Councillor Jordan.
4.
Councillor Napton. Councillor Lacey. Councillor Les. Councillor Lunn.
4.
Councillor Mason. Councillor Morehouse. Councillor Myers. Councillor Packham. Councillor Praskos. Councillor Parsons. Councillor Peacock. Councillor Pearson. Councillor Phillips. Councillor Poskett. Councillor Proud. Councillor Ritchie. Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Schofield. Councillor Sedgwick. Councillor Seston. Councillor Sharma. Councillor Shaw-Wright. Councillor Sladden. Councillor Slater. Councillor Soloway. Oh, thank you. Councillor Staveley. Councillor Swanwick.
4.
Councillor Swires.
4.
Councillor Taylor. Councillor Thompson. Councillor Timothy.
4.
Councillor Trumper. Councillor Walker. Councillor Warnican. Councillor Watson. Councillor Webster. Councillor Wheel. Councillor White. Councillor Annabel Wilkinson. Councillor Peter Wilkinson. Councillor Williams. Councillor Windass. You could have told me you're all going to vote for before that, right?
That's unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Member, this is the end of the agenda for the first meeting today. Congratulations, and unusually we are running ahead of time. Normally we take about 40 minutes for lunch break. Would people be minded to start ahead of the 2 o'clock scheduled start, or do you want to start at 2 o'clock as planned? 2 o'clock? I'm hearing 2 o'clock. Okay. We will be back at 2 o'clock. The live broadcast will resume then. See you at 2.
Good afternoon, everyone. If you can now take your seats, please, and we will shortly be commencing the extraordinary meeting of council.
Excellent. Can you all hear me? Have we started the live recording? Live recording is on. Excellent. Perfect. I would like to welcome the honorary aldermen, members of the public and the press, and also those watching online to this extraordinary meeting of North Yorkshire Council. As mentioned earlier today, this meeting was called to deal with two urgent issues, as the Constitution only allows for matters relating to the budget to be discussed at the budget meeting, which we did. As with the first meeting, this meeting is live broadcast and will be available to view on the Council YouTube site and website. Please ensure that you use your microphones when speaking. I ask members also to be aware that what is on the screen of your laptop or your phone may inadvertently be picked up by the cameras. Item 1 is apologies for absence. In addition to the apologies that we had this morning, are there any other apologies that the group secretaries wish to add? Nothing? Okay. That's great. So now we move to agenda item number 2, which is the declaration of interest. Members who are school governors don't have to declare an interest under the Code of Conduct on the item on school admission arrangement, and this is not this is not a role carried out for profit or gain. Can I ask whether members wish to formally make any other declarations of interest relating to any items on the agenda for this afternoon? No, I can't see any hands up. Item 3 is Chair's announcement. You would be pleased to know that I don't have any further announcements to what I said this morning. Item 4 is the school admission arrangement 2728. I call on Councillor Annabel Wilkinson to move the recommendations.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all the officers in Children's Services who have prepared this annual report for us. Council are asked to consider and approve the school admission arrangements for the school year 2027-28. This report, together with appendices, sets out the coordinated admission arrangements and in-year arrangements for all applicants who apply for a place in a maintained school or academy in North Yorkshire. The Council consults annually, and the proposals for the arrangements for 2027-28 were consulted upon between the 13th of October and the 25th of November last year, in accordance with the requirements of the Schools Admissions Code. Full Council are now asked to adopt the policy before the end of February. Happy to move to the recommendations, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on this item? I can't see any hands up. Councillor Wilkinson, would you like to exercise your right of reply? Anything else you'd like to say?
I would just like to move the recommendations, Chair. Would you like me to read them out in full or just to... No. So move the recommendations, please, at point 7.1 and 7.2. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we're going to move to the vote. All those in favour, please show. Any against? Any abstentions? The vote is carried. We now move to item 5, which is the appointment to committees according to proportionalities. I call on Councillor Carles to move the recommendations.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, with the departure of Councillor Mann from my group, we recognise that we are no longer in that majority position that we had before. So as required, Chairman, we have given up 7 overview and scrutiny seats and 6 ordinary committee seats. I just hope it is recognised that we are still the largest single group by some margin. I'd like to move the recommendations as already have been agreed between group leaders. And let's move to the vote on all the others where there isn't agreement, because I'm sure we can all agree that it's less important to worry where the deck chairs are allocated than it is to avoid any icebergs. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Les. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor that, I will now move to Barry Khan about the discussions that have been carried out with the group leaders about those appointments.
Thank you, Chair. What's been circulated to members is a list of committee places and who's been nominated. There's just a few that where it says TBC to be confirmed, and I'm really grateful to the group leaders for having a conversations with regards to what can be agreed. So I understand that what's been agreed so far for those to be confirmed is for Employment Appeals Committee, that's going to go to the Green and Independents. The Development Plan Committee, that will go to the Liberal Democrats and Liberals. And the space on the General Licensing and Registration Committee will go to the unaffiliated members. I would ask if groups cannot nominate names and then the council delegate the ability for me to accept the names after the meeting, if that's not possible. And finally, across the page is Councillor Janet Jefferson to be the North Yorkshire Independents representative on the Scarborough and Whitby Area Planning Committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Kevin Foster.
I don't think the agreement was the Greens to go on the ordinaries. Sorry, I think it's been a long day. I think what was agreed was standard and governance and pension board. You read out their health. Was it health you read out?
I thought it was standards and governance, which
Yes.
is green, but also the employment appeals.
It wasn't that one. It was the pensions instead of that one that you've just read out. I've just agreed with leaders. Which is an unaffiliated post that went to the pensions board, and standards and governance were the two that we agreed just about 10 minutes ago.
Right. So, but what's your proposal? So, apologies. So, there's unaffiliated going to the Pension Fund Committee, which has got Councillor Michelle Donoghue Moncrief as their representative. The one that was vacant was the General Licensing and Registration Committee. So that's what I thought was being discussed. So I thought the two seats that you were taking up would be the General Licensing and Registration Committee. Sorry, apologies. Would be the Standards and Governance Committee, and then also the Employment Appeals Committee.
Appointment to Appeals Committee. Yeah, that's okay. We're happy with that.
Makes the budget look easy. Sorry, thank you.
Councillor Peter Lacey.
I need to get used to having swapped seat with Barbara. The height difference is a little different, and I'm not sure. Oh, I hope you can hear me. I wish to table an amendment, notwithstanding the agreements, the well-spirited, good-spirited and robust conversations that have gone on between group leaders. But as a matter of principle, I suppose, it is unusual to, in effect, remove the chair of an overview and scrutiny committee from an opposition group within the term of the office. I therefore feel it's important that the whole council gets to vote on that, and therefore I'm proposing that Councillor Barbara Brodigan retain the chair of Children and Families Overview and Scrutiny Committee for the remainder of this council. We believe that Councillor Brodigan excuse me, has performed her duties as chair of the Children and Families Overview and Scrutiny with the utmost professionalism and with the highest standards of what makes scrutiny effective. She has held the council to account, as is the role of scrutiny, and has welcomed input from the public in an open and transparent way. Custom and practice is clear, I believe, that holders of scrutiny chairs are asked to serve a full term, unless, of course, there are clear practical reasons why this should not be the case. We do not believe that there are such reasons in this case for removing Councillor Brodigan from this role. If there has been an erosion of trust between the council and members of the public on matters relating to children and families business, the fault of this does not lie with the chair, but elsewhere in this chamber. We therefore call on the opportunity for members to vote on that Councillor Brodigan retain her position as chair. If that doesn't pass, then we're happy to fall back on the agreements that have been developed over the last week with other group leaders. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lacey. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Griffith. Would anyone like to speak on what Councillor Lacey has just said? Councillor Les.
Chair, just for procedural purposes, can I be absolutely clear? So we're voting on whether Councillor Brodigan stays as chair or not. Do I need to nominate Councillor Goodrick as the alternative?
The original proposal still stands. This is the amendment to the proposal at the moment. So at the moment, the amendment's on the floor with regards to that. So if it passes, that becomes the motion. If it fails, then the original motion stands.
Councillor Shorite and then Councillor Warnick.
Thanks, Chair. I can understand partly where this is coming from, but I have serious concerns. We met as a group of leaders with council officer support. We discussed at length all the things in the paper that we've got. My serious concern is if we start using full council to support, continue or remove chairs that have already been previously agreed, next month we'll be removing somebody else from a chair because we don't particularly like them. The following month we might want to propose somebody else, and the council will be in disarray because we will be chopping and changing over and over again. I think the way we've done this for some considerable time is the right way to do. The leaders got together, we had strong discussions, robust discussions over very minor things. We agreed, and I think we need to stick with that agreement, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Warnick and then Councillor Jordan.
Thank you, Chair. I just not quite clear why I would vote one way or the other, because I'm not sure why the council has been removed for that role. So I just wanted an explanation before I decide how I'm going to vote.
I think Councillor Shorite highlighted that there was a discussion between the group leaders on this. So I don't know if Councillor Kevin Foster.
I wasn't there, Chair.
No, I know, but your group leader.
But I'm being asked to vote.
Your group leader was there, so I wonder if any of the group leaders who were privy to those conversations would like to answer Councillor Warnick's question. Councillor Parsons.
At the meetings, at no point was any concern or consternation raised about that particular change. Now, I understand exactly where they're coming from, but having had, I think, 3 opportunities now to discuss the changes that are before us, at no point did anybody raise a concern about that particular change. So I am rather confused that at this last minute, we're suddenly annoyed. Or some of us are, sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Parsons, for that. Sorry, Councillor Warnick, you've had your question. You spoke. Well, you can take it up with your group leader afterwards. Councillor Jordan. Councillor Jordan, you raised your hand earlier.
Utterly confused here, but anyhow, this might be the wrong place to raise it, but in view of the new Conlabs group, I just wondered whether these voting on this will be a waste of time because we've got to change the proportionalities again. Thank you, Chair.
This has no impact on the proportionality because that was political grouping, while this one is about the chair of a particular overview and scrutiny committee. Does anyone else wish to speak on this motion, this amendment that was presented by Councillor Leahy? I can't see any hands up, so I think we're now going to the vote. All those in favour of the amendment that was presented by Councillor Peter Leahy, please raise your hand. Anyone against? Any abstentions? So the amendment is not carried. I believe if we've got another amendment from Councillor Kevin Foster.
Thank you, Chair. The amendment is from the Green Party and Independents that I take over the chair from the Independents group. The reason I'm saying this is after the proportionality change, it gives the Green Independents 8.9% of the council, and if you divide it proportionally, it will give us 1 chair. So I'd like to propose that, Chair. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Andy Brown. Anyone wishes to speak in relation to this motion? Okay, we'll go to the vote now if no one else wants to say anything on this. Anyone in favour of the motion that was presented by Councillor Kevin Foster, please show. Anyone against? Any abstentions? The amendment is not carried. I believe that we have another amendment from Councillor Peter Lacey. No, that's fine.
Sorry, no, that's been settled in the interim because the place on corporate development plan has gone to Hannah Goslow. I don't think that needs to be an amendment now, or does it?
I think that's all okay. I think there was just a question about who would be chairing the scrutiny committee that you have the chair of.
Sorry, Care and Independence will be Barbara Brodigan.
Does anyone, so on the appointment to committee according to proportionality, does anyone have anything else that they would like to raise? Any motions? No, and therefore we now go back to the original motion. Councillor Les, would you like to exercise your right of reply or say anything? We will now go to the vote. All those in favour, please show. Anyone against? Any abstentions? So that's the vote is carried unanimously. Well, members, I'm pleased to say that this is the end of the agenda for today. I declare the meeting closed. The live broadcast will now stop. Have a lovely Valentine's Day tomorrow, a wonderful weekend, and a safe journey home. Take care, everyone. Thank you.